Down a darkened drive, you'll find their candlelight. From a widow's peak, you'll see it burning bright. Through the double doors into their dusty tomb, you'll feel eyes from paintings follow room to room. On the creaky stairs, you may think twice as you tell yourself those bangs are mice. In the upstairs hall, you'll see shadows dance. There's a light from the candle, this is your only chance. You run and you cry as you curse this dark night, only to find at the end there's no candlelight. Instead, there's some headphones you put on full of fear. When suddenly it's every nightmare rolled into one that you hear. And it says, "Welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow with your host, John and Stacey Edwards of ParanormalSideshow.com. Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow. I'm your host, John Edwards, and joined as always by my lovely wife, Stacey.
Hello.
We have had Scarefest 2019 in the rearview mirror.
Yes.
As I hear Pearl Jam right now singing rearview mirror. It's like their best song, one of the best songs.
I'll take your word for it.
Oh, you know Pearl Jam songs.
I do, but I don't know them by name specifically.
Yeah, well, there's none of them named specifically, so you're in luck. So 2019 is now past us. Well, not the year, but the Scarefest. So basically the year. And we've got so much news from Scarefest to bring to you fresh off the press. And well, hot off the press, fresh off the skillet. I don't know.
Something.
Is there anything it's fresh off of?
The farm?
Fresh off the farm? No, I don't know if it's fresh off the farm. That's kind of a weird saying anyway. So yeah, I see a girl over there. Home, baby. Home. She's fresh off the farm.
I was thinking more along the lines of vegetables and eggs and, milk fresh from the farm.
Yeah, vegetables and eggs and milk. Fresh from the farm. I got you. Farm Fresh. Well, that's what this episode is Farm Fresh. And we're going to talk all about Scarefest, Farm Fresh 2019. And we want to, give a bunch of thanks and all this stuff to some people that helped us along the way, and people that we got to meet, and people that got to meet us, and crazy things that happened and awesome things that happened. And as we go through this, we've also got some amazing news in today's episode. Just some really humdinger bangers. So on Scarefest 2019, the year of our Lord, we had a fantastic time.
We did.
Number uno. I was real worried about things like headaches and worrying about these things only because I have little things in my head that cause me to have my transistors are turned way up. So when I'm in a room full of people that also have transistors that are turned up, it's like, it's
a lot of noise.
It hurts. And I usually get a headache, but I had a pre-existing condition this time. This time my headache was already going, and I had the telltale signs, the pose, if you will, the day before when my neck was kind of hurting and my teeth were aching, and as soon as I mentioned the teeth, Stacey's like, "Oh God," and but I trooped it. I did. I was.
You did very good.
I was a trooper, and the next day I had a full blown migraine. I had a migraine all night the night before. Horrible. We got there late. The drive up was somewhat pleasant, I guess. And, it's not a terribly long drive for us, but it's like 4.5 hours, something like that.
The hotel room was great.
The hotel room was fantastic. It was well beyond expectations, being people that stay in hotels quite a bit. When you get the suite and the kids' room is far enough away from your room that you don't hear kids, then the hotel gets 5 stars and an attaboy.
Yep.
And then the hotel clerk that we ended up having most of the time, she was fantastic. She really was. She was the kind of, do you need dish rags too? Or, washcloths as well?
Right. Because
we don't ever let maids come in. It's just one of our things. Like, if we're going to be there 5 days, no. I mean, the maids actually start getting mad and offended. Like after the 4th day, I see them in the hallway and they're like, "Oh,
well, I don't want people to think that I bring extra trash bags and we keep the room very clean. I bag up the trash. Sometimes I put it outside for them to take, and I just get extra towels. I just trade towels out with them, but I don't want them to come in messing around. We got our stuff unpacked. We'd rather just be homey.
And here's the thing, homie. We trust the maids. We absolutely trust the maids. And I wish the maids didn't have their feelings hurt, because the reason we don't want them in there is we don't want them to see all our stuff. I mean, because I'm telling you, okay, look, a lot of maids are our favorite kind of people. And there are little, you know, they're nice, like Spanish, like, you know, little ladies, and they come in there and they may or may not be, you know, pretty familiar with some of the artifacts we may have laying around. And we just don't want them running with their hands in the air, waving, you know, going El Diablo.
Honestly, most of the time we stay in hotels, we're sleeping when the maids are doing their stuff, because we're up all night.
Yeah, that's true.
So we just kind of got used to being those people that didn't have maid service.
They should have midnight maids.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, it would. I think they have a name for that. But yeah, that's a fetish for you. Anyway, let me get back on track here.
Yes, okay.
I want to thank Wes Forsyth and Anita, or Wes and Anita Forsyth, I could say, even better. Back in the old days, I'm Mrs. Forsyth, you know, which I like that. I don't mind that at all, but it's just kind of funny watching an old movie.
Well, of course you don't mind it.
Well, yeah. I don't think it's chauvinistic. I think that it's proud.
There you are.
And Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, you know, Mr. and Mrs. John Edwards. That's how they say it, isn't it? Yeah. Well, that way you don't have to worry about the E on your name.
I see. Problem solved.
Yeah, problem solved. They were looking out for female spellings.
Well, it was really good to see Wes and Anita. We hadn't seen them in a while.
It was. It was nice to have the big hug by Anita. It was nice to have the man hug by Wes. All this good stuff. And they're always so much fun. And as we chronicled on their show, which is Scarefest Radio, and on, you know, our show several times, Wes has really went up that ladder from hanging out on our booth to pretty much, you know, he runs the thing.
Right. Well, he was busy this weekend.
He's Mr. MC Hammer, man. And Anita's busy as a bee over there doing all her stuff. But such lovely people. They, like, the lovely couple of the year award goes to them. I just love them to death. But the coolest thing right off the bat, they have the black carpet at Scarefest.
Right.
And we always act like it's not a big deal. Like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal till you get asked to go.
Right.
But we were, you know, there we were on the black carpet, and which is the red carpet for those of you not following along well. But, you know, we were going to go first, but there was actually this cowboy in front of me. And when I say cowboy, I mean adorable cowboy. And I will tell you honestly, I had no idea who he was, but there was people salivating over this guy. And I didn't know, and he turned around, he said some stuff to me. I still don't know what he said. I really don't. And it was just because it was that frontier gibberish that... Well,
and you have to understand, he's like 90 years old.
Yeah, no, I get it. But Gabby Johnson is right. Shrevish. But Clu Gallagher, or Clu Gulager, or whatever.
I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
Let's call him Clu.
Okay.
So Clu... most of the youngins there knew him from like Return of the Living Dead, which is, you know, big deal and a big deal comedy zombie, you know, movie. But I was more excited because I had to dig in, you know, I had to find out what these clues were. And so I'm standing there talking to this dude who was in the Virginian. He was, you know, he was on Wagon Train. He was on freaking, I mean, my God. So many of the TV shows that I like watch, like Have Gun Will Travel. He was in that. He was in Alfred Hitchcock. He was in Untouchables. Just so many freaking westerns, especially. He was in The Last Picture Show, The Other Side of Midnight. Just amazing amount of movies to his credit.
Explains the cowboy hat.
Yeah, and what's cool is all those westerns that he was in back then, because any actor back then had to be in westerns because that was the dominant, that was the law and order of that time period, right? And I watch when I need my mind rested, when I need to feel good. When I go to the cabin, I turn it on MeTV, I lay back on the couch, put a little fire on the fireplace, and I watch westerns all day long. I don't care which ones it is. I do have my favorites. You know, I love like Rawhide. I love Wagon Train. I love all these, of course, Bonanza and the Rifleman. I love the Rifleman. But it's not stuff I watch. You got to understand, I don't watch this stuff if I'm home. Right. I don't watch it. This stuff gets watched by me. If you see me watching Westerns, then you need to be concerned with my mental health at that moment.
Or you're on vacation.
Yeah, or I'm on vacation when I'm trying to regroup my mental health.
Right.
For some reason, you take me back to that simple time when everything's resolved by the end of a show, when it doesn't get too convoluted. It's somebody stole a horse, something like that. Somebody's in love and they can't be, and it's forbidden, and all this stuff, right? And it made sense. Like, somebody did you wrong, you shoot them in the head. And
my favorite part is when people ask them and they say, no, I didn't do it, and they're like, all right, I believe you.
Yeah. Well, you could, yeah. You could,
yeah, exactly.
You could believe people then. And so anyway, that's like one of my guilty pleasures, and there's a reason for it. It's I had one grandfather who watched Westerns continuously. So anytime you would come in his house, even before there were Western networks, I don't know how the man did it, there was always Westerns on. I don't know if he was channeling Westerns or what, but he always had Westerns, and they would play all the time, and he never got tired of it. But it was cool because you could come in at any point in a Western.
I loved going there because you would go in, he'd have this humongous large screen TV, like state of the art, top of the line HD TV, and all he played was old black and white Westerns.
And he named every dog the same.
Yes, all of his dogs were named Lady.
Yes.
Didn't matter if it was the same dog or not. To him, it was the same dog, I suppose. Well, it was the same kind of dog.
Yeah, he always got the same kind of dog. I'm not sure he realized it was a different dog.
It's kind of like Lassie. Lassie was not always the same Lassie.
I'm pretty sure with Grandpa, they just re-up the dog every now and then. And he never really knew. He just knew that sometimes Lady wasn't as loving as she was the day before.
Right, right.
But eventually she came around. And let me tell you, it doesn't matter if it was Lady 72 or Lady 81. The Lady would lay at his feet, and if you got near that man, that little ball of fur would just eat you alive. And he had this magic to him. This was my grandpa, man. He had this magic to him where he had this gold spittoon the whole time I was ever alive with him. And because he died up in his 90s, he was like 94, but he had this gold spittoon, and it could be 5 feet away from him. and it seriously, and it would just bing. I mean, it would just go over there and hit it, and in my head it made the sound, but it made more of like a just a nasty like plop poop sound. But
right.
And it would get full, and my grandmother was just as good because she dipped as well. But she dipped the snuff, and it was so much fun being around there. And I would give anything, to you youngins who aren't spending time with your grandparents. Let me tell you, you'll give anything to go back. I could still smell what their house smelled like. And, just that innocence of being able, because everything's okay when you're at your grandparents'. It's like there's no problems there. But that's where my love for Westerns came from. And that's why when I watch them, there's no problems. My granddaddy on the other side, he watched racing all the time. So I sometimes get on YouTube, and actually you can look up like 1985 Talladega. and it's still got the commercials in it and all this stuff. Sometimes when I'm really not feeling good, I'll lay down and I'll turn that on, and it's the same kind of feeling.
Right.
It's very cool. But we all have our things. So anyway, Mr. Clue went in front of us, so I wasn't going to push the cowboy out of the way. I think I would have got heat.
Yeah, probably.
But we went second, and we looked pretty good doing it. I was nervous. You can tell I was nervous because I got up there and I didn't know what to do with my hands. So I have this problem. Like, a lot of times I know what to do with my hands. So that's why I came up with hand signals like in wrestling. And I have the wrestling pose where I always put up my fist. And so I've been doing that for paranormal pictures because I noticed on my paranormal pictures I can't throw gang signs, and like I do.
There are no like paranormal signs that you can do with your hands.
So I've just started putting the fist up, and I've got other people doing it. So when I do it, they just seem to do it. So
they're like, oh, is this what we're doing?
We're going to start this whole paranormal thing now where it's going to look like a bunch of badasses. It's going to be like, I don't want to screw with those paranormal people. They all hold up the fist, the fist.
You need to come up with a paranormal hand sign.
I do.
For pictures.
Yeah.
Something just for like paranormal people. to hold up.
It's really hard. It's one of those things I think about consciously because I know what it's going to look like. See, the problem is I'm so much taller than everyone.
Right.
And it's a real issue. When you're taller than most of the people around you, and I really am, it's awkward, okay? Because either I'm going to have to stand there with bad posture, or I'm standing up straight and, you know, my chest is level with most of my friends' heads. And it's just the truth. And it's awkward for me. So I have to figure out different ways. Like one of my favorite pictures, I'm kind of leaning over two guys, and, you know, it's Alan and friend Daryl. That's my name for him.
Friend Daryl?
Friend Daryl, yeah. So friend Daryl and Alan, you know, I put my arms around them and look, kind of give the Road Warrior Hawk thing on it. But speaking of that, we go on the black carpet and it's fantastic. It's just a good feeling. We're getting people taking pictures and all this stuff. So I'm still got the migraine. And so I don't remember many things from day one because of said migraine, but when people would come by, I would light up. And I just have to do that. Stacy did a wonderful job though, just taking point as she does. And we had all our new stuff. We had our new business cards. We had our new backdrop, all this good stuff. We had a ton of books to, you know, distribute and all this stuff with the people. A lot of fun stuff the first day, but the first day is kind of, it's a first day.
Right.
It's
right.
a, you know, it's a school day.
It's not as busy, yeah, because people are working and, you know, they're not going to come to the convention on the first day.
Right. So that night though, you know, like I said, the hotel was fantastic. So the next morning I felt wonderful.
Thank goodness.
We had the big 3 lecture day.
Yes.
You can call them
day.
lectures, panels. I don't care what you call them. We call them lectures. So the first one was the Till Death and Beyond. And what we did on that was we went studious and very deep on the Till Death and Beyond because we really wanted to give a great impression. And because, yes, this is our 3rd Scarefest, but it's our first as our own entity without another company.
Right. So that lecture was more of an introduction to us.
Yes.
And more about, you know, why we wrote the book and what was in the book. And we got to tell, you know, how we got into it and some of our personal stories.
It was a lot like the show.
Yes. Yes.
We did it on purpose, like the podcast. There was a lot of comedy. There were still some good stories. I told some creepy stories.
Which the time goes by so quickly, though.
It really
you
does.
only get like 45 minutes and a couple of stories.
We took an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Alan was after us and he didn't care. He was in the room. He's like, it's fine. Just keep going. Just keep going. So, but it was a lot of fun and the room was pretty full.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was pretty full.
Yeah, it felt good. And, you know, so that was nice. And we made some new friends out of that. And then the next panel that we did was the one that was the conspiracy panel. Now, this is funny because Stacy she's not as into the conspiracies as me.
Right.
She has a lot of conspiracy knowledge per osmosis because of all the conspiracy stuff that I'm into.
Right.
And, you know, I have the books, I have the history. I
have a very general overview of conspiracies, but there aren't any that I'm very in-depthly knowledgeable about.
Right. Probably more so the government stuff than anything. So I was really afraid going into this. Should I talk about the government stuff? Well, no, I shouldn't. I should really stay away from that because it's way too fringe. I'll get the moon landing stuff, maybe even a little JFK. People always are okay with that. You know, things like that. That's what I was going to stick with. So I went deep with the moon landing and I was going to stick with that kind of stuff. We get in there. It was so funny.
Yeah, we're on the panel with Wes Forsyth, who's supposedly supposed to be like the MC, like the leader, the one that, you know, starts the whole thing. And then there's us, Alan Marston also is there, Kyle Cobb, and Susanna McComas.
Yes. So Kyle and Susanna are really like your big time, you know, government links, you know, lawyers, you know, like they know their crap, right?
Yeah. Susanna is super knowledgeable. She was like on the police force at one point. She does
attorney, just everything,
cold case crimes. I mean, all of it.
Yes. Yeah. With the actual DC. And Kyle, you know, has been in the government before. He knows a lot of stuff. And
I feel like he's more the historian type.
Right. But very entertaining.
Yes.
And so, you know, they were there and it was funny because Wes starts it off. And I'm sitting there, and you got to understand, as far as government conspiracies go, I don't bring them on the show.
Right.
Because I try not to get us, too far on the blacklist, which we already are.
And we stay away from political stuff.
Yeah, and I knew there was, government agents in the crowd, but that doesn't matter. I digress. But anyway, we were doing this, and oh man, Wes starts it off, and he's like, conspiracies are everywhere. I mean, sometimes people can be in a jail cell and have all 24-hour guards. And I was like, oh my God, he's going Epstein right off the bat.
He did, right into it.
As soon as he did that, he pitched it to Suzanne. And when he pitched it to Suzanne, it was just like, she did a little bit, but then I jumped in. And I tell you, I got to go deep. I got to talk 9/11. I got to talk, some of the regular government conspiracies that are going on now. I got to talk in depth on the NSA. I got to talk in depth on the fact that they're listening to us through our TVs, through our phones. We talked about the Facebook thing, like everybody notices when you mention, tricycles. The next time you turn on Facebook, there's going to be tricycles on the ads. And that's creepy, right? And I even told them about a friend that I have that's listening right now, that her and her husband think about stuff to see if it shows up. And then I talked to them about a story we did a couple of weeks ago here on the show where they're working on that technology. And if you know as well as I do, because you listen to the show, if they say they're working on it, it's already done and probably being used. So it was funny because as we went, we really played off each other hard, and I was an integral part of this because it was fun. It was what I talk about. It was government conspiracies. And I loved how I went into the 9/11 because, I got to be careful with the 9/11 inside job stuff. But I just kind of went into it with, I don't know, man, it's like sometimes there could be a lot of money missing, and it's kind of weird that one day, you make an announcement, hey, we're missing X amount of dollars. The next day, a plane flies into the accounting department and destroys all the information. Of course, they say it was a plane, but they never found a fuselage. It doesn't look like a plane crash. There's nothing there. Could it have been a missile? There's not really any video of it. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not saying there's anything to this, but, Building 7, anyone? It was that kind of thing, right? So I went full on the job. And because truth be known, I have honestly thought about having a conspiracy radio show under a different name. And I've talked to Stacy about it because I know so much about them. I really, really want to do it so bad. I want to call myself something like Johnny Payback. And just be like, hello, this is Johnny Payback, and this is Conspiracy Night.
You think now everybody's going to know that it's you?
Well, I'll call myself something else. Like Johnny Firechest or something. But yeah, it was real.
You did have a lot of fun in that film, and I contributed.
You did. And it was packed. It was fun.
Well, the best part about the whole conspiracy panel was at the end.
Right.
After we had done going 30 minutes about how you're being spied on and Facebook is watching you and your phones are watching you.
I know where you're going.
And, we get to the end and at the end where normally people would applaud and come up and, ask you questions and shake your hand. Everybody just sort of looked at their phones and looked really disturbed and were side-eyeing each other. And I think we made the joke that we were afraid they were going to all go, because we were on the 3rd floor and there's a huge drop-off,
right.
We're like, they're just going to walk out and jump off the balcony
or
now.
throw their phones off the balcony.
Yeah, something.
They seriously all looked like they had just seen for the first time Reagan peeing in the floor on The Exorcist. Like it was, you remember how everybody's face in that room, the
right,
piano room, they're all looking at Reagan like, that's these people. And the funny thing was they all did applaud, but it was like that first person had to be like,
it was like the polite,
and then everybody,
they weren't really sure what to do now.
They were freaked out. But hey, somebody did a great line, and I think it may have been Kyle, and he said that's what they came here for.
Right,
we did our job. And I thought that was really cool because you and I always aim to please. We always want to see a smile on their faces.
Right. We're more on the comedy end.
Well, yeah, we want to see smiles on faces. That's just what we do.
Right.
And it makes us feel better. But in reality, you came to something called Scarefest. And
to a panel about conspiracy theories.
And we just scared the crap. I bet you anything we scared them more than the voodoo panel did.
Probably.
All I know is there was a voodoo panel happening next door, and you could literally hear people like, I don't know what was going on. Like, I have to wonder if they didn't like, today we're going to do a live sacrifice, you know?
Like a guy in there. Yeah.
Earl's been nice enough to come up and participate. It was really cool. And, you know, then after we terrified everyone, here's the cool one. Okay, Alan Marston, I love you. I'm just going to say it now. Alan obviously got a hold of us during Haunted South, had us come up to Appomattox Courthouse years ago, and it's been a beautiful relationship ever since. And as I've chronicled before, Alan spread his wings and he started doing this stuff anywhere he could on any subject. He does a great serial killer thing. He does all kinds of different ways, and he'll do half topic will travel. You know, he really dives into it, and I'm proud of him. Very proud of him. He's built his own name. And, you know, so that's really cool. I always consider it like, you know, when Korn would sign a band,
right?
You know, like Limp Bizkit or Stained or somebody like that, they would do like the Family Values tour, right?
Right.
You had all the bands on there. I've always liked stuff like that. So I kind of love it when these people, which you could put West Forsyth in there, you could put a lot of people in this umbrella that have had sort of the rub. On the show or something, and they've went on to bigger and better things.
Right, they've worked hard.
Yeah, and anyway, it's kind of funny that we were doing this, and I was like, you know, all weekend, and actually for weeks, I was like, how do you want to lay this out? And because the third one was a last minute thing, they had a cancellation. I'll be honest with everyone on here, and they were like, would you guys care to do another seminar? You know, and yeah, absolutely. They're like, what do you want to call it? And I was like, well,
you're asking John to talk more? Yeah, twist his arm. It's fine.
I was like, well, how about a crazy thing happened on our way to normal? And just where we could cover the fringe topics. And I figure, you know, if we're doing this last and people have seen us in the first one and they want more, I'm going to give them more. I'm going to tell them some things I've never said on the radio. I've never said anywhere. Maybe I've mentioned it here and there and I've hinted, but I've never really went in depth with these stories. And I decided, it took me the last minute, but I decided I was going to tell all. And we get in there and we were up against some stiff competition, including the time of night. But we get in there, poorly advertised on our part because we never put up the Facebook invite for the third one.
Right.
Stuff like that. So there's a small crowd.
Right.
You know, there's a few couples in there and some solo people in there, you know, but it was still,
I mean, I would say 20.
Yeah, it was still reasonable. And so we're in there and everybody starts talking, you know, and it's an awkward beginning because as smaller crowds, you really have to be, no matter what you're doing. I like it because I love the intimacy because you can really connect and get some good information.
Right, right.
But as being a public speaker, I'm always focusing on like, you know, three different points in the room, and that kind of took up the room.
Yeah.
You know,
So you looked at every single person.
Right. So I try to connect with people, and there was a couple of women that were in there, and I could see them when I was starting to come out with my things I don't normally talk about. They were like, with their eyes, they were like rooting me on, you know, they were bringing it to me, and I got emotional. I cried. I mean, there was a part in it that I cried because I had never said it in public. And, you know, so I was going through this stuff, and it had to do with UFOs, guys. It had to do with psychic gifts, if you will, connections that have happened, and very personal things,
right, that
I do not want to associate it with the name per se. I don't care to talk about it. I don't care to say it's there. I just don't want it. I don't want the doctor on the name. I don't care to be a doctor, but I'd rather just be John.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there going through this, and I kind of stole this presentation. I would keep looking over at Alan and being like, hey, you want to talk about shadow people? And I guess it was going so deep for me. He'd be like, no, man, why don't you just keep it?
I think this was after he had done his serial killer presentation. I think he was a little shell-shocked still, because he had a huge turnout for that, and it was very disturbing information.
Because he went into fish.
Yeah, and I think that...
Your relative.
He's not my relative, but I think he was just a little bit still.
Yeah.
Like that. He was finished with
I
it.
don't
The
think
weight was off.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do it anymore.
No, I don't think so. I think it really messed with him.
I think it bothers him, and which
it would.
Yeah, that makes me happy that it bothers him.
Yes.
But friend Daryl was in there with us, and I connected with these women, and it just they did so much for me, and I don't know if they realized it at the time. There was also somebody who works for Scarefest, one of the staff that was in there, this young girl, and I connected with her and her friend. I take it they seemed like they knew each other,
right?
Whom we took a picture with afterwards. But especially these two that we later found out are named Marge and Barb. And Marge and Barb are absolute lights in a world of darkness. They are beautiful souls, and they lit me up like you wouldn't believe. I got to meet them the next day on Sunday, and on Sunday we talked for probably 25 minutes, but we talked about a lot. They've been to Contact in the Desert. They've been to a lot of these things I want to do.
They just travel around and do all that cool stuff.
They travel around and hit some of the coolest things imaginable, and sometimes you meet people that are kindred spirits. You meet them and you know right then that there is this tethered little string that has always had you connected.
Right.
And Stacy and I both felt when we were talking to Marge and Barb that we were connected to them. They were.
Yes, we're going to see them again.
Yeah, they have that gypsy heart that we have.
Right.
There's people that we connect with, like Travis Molden has that gypsy heart, and we're really friends with, because we would be entirely, if we didn't have the responsibilities we have, Stacy and I would be in a van, a nice van, but we would have a van and we would travel around the country nonstop. We would do these lectures every weekend, anywhere, even if it was a library, because we enjoy the exchange of information. We enjoy these personal interactions, and it charges our batteries. And I just wanted to give a big thanks to Marge and Barb. I don't know if they're listening. I hope that they are, but I just wanted to make sure that I got them out mentioned, because of how much they meant to the whole weekend for us. And, with that said, there was another couple that was just lovely, and they were cute as could be. And, he just got out of law school. You could tell she's proud of her man, but they were awesome. It was Robert and Ashley Evans. And
yes,
they were so awesome to come hunt us down after one of the talks. I believe Till Death and Beyond, that I hooked them up with a book. I told Stacy, I was like, we give them a book.
Yeah. Well, normally we do giveaways at things like that, and we hadn't planned any this time. So
well, it was because we didn't have time for the Q&A.
Right.
So we had an allotment of 5 books that we were going to give to people that got trivia questions correct. And it's kind of, I do a joke like, it's trivia questions about me. So I do it because of Harry Potter, and ever since Chamber of Secrets, I love that book. And when he's like, all about me, I just love that. And I've always wanted, when I had a book, I always wanted to do things when I talk about the book,
right? To
be like, what's John's favorite color? What was John's first album? And just for fun,
right?
And so I didn't get a chance to do that joke, but hopefully in a room like that, people would have got a Harry Potter joke.
I would hope so.
But Robert and Ashley are awesome, and they'll be at a public event with us because we're going to be setting some up, and pretty excited about that. Chad Harlan, who listens to the show, and I had no idea what a hot snot he was. Like, Chad Harlan's I got his hands all over everything, and so I've talked to him online, and here he is, like, he's like, yeah, man. And I was like, God, I know the name. And I felt so stupid.
Right.
But I didn't, I don't go look up when I talk to someone, I'm not a stalker.
Right.
So if somebody gets a hold of me, and I'm talking to them, I don't know if they're a movie star. All I know is they enjoyed something we did on the show. So we talk about the show, and here Chad Harlan is like freaking second batter up to the MC, and
right. He had a couple lectures of his own.
I got to MC one time. And that was cool. Like Chad was busy, Wes was busy, and I got to do it.
And Anita was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, no, I love it. Like, that dude, if they would let me do it, I would do it because I love it.
You'd be really good at it, too.
I got to say, kids, the costume contest will be at 1 p.m. You know, that's really fun stuff. You know, and going through all these, we talked about Suzanne McComas, we talked about Kyle Cobb, and, you know, I kind of talk about some of the characters, man. So I'm going back to migraine day.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there and I'm just hurting, right? Well, the most adorable man that I've ever seen comes up to the table. And this happens every time we're at a convention. There's always somebody.
Yep.
There's somebody that shows up that's just a character. and this time this guy comes up and I tell you, he was just dressed like he should have been dressed.
Yeah.
And he comes up and he's like, you know, hey, and we just hit it off. I mean, we were talking about some of the same language on some stuff.
Well, I'll just tell everybody, when he means dressed, he means like kilt, vest, top hat, feathers. You know, I think one day he had a bird on his hat, just necklaces, just completely decked out. He looked amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so he comes up and he starts talking to him, and he's talking to me about the fact that I didn't feel good. I'm like, yeah, I feel horrible. I got this migraine and all this stuff. Well, his name's Jarrett. Okay. And it's a cool spelling of Jarrett. It's like Jerrett. But anyway, Jarrett, I just call him Jarrett the Healer. But Jarrett came up, he ended up bringing his family by later, which was even awesome. But he's like, do you mind? Like at first he wouldn't shake my hand just because he picks up things. It's funny. He's like, I pick up stuff, you know, if you've been on investigations and you haven't, and see, I never get cleansed. So I was like, you don't want to touch me, pal. You know, I mean, I could just see him touching me and just turning black and his eyes like fire coming out of his eyes, you know, full on Indiana Jones.
Right.
Like, but yeah, he puts this, you know, stuff on his hands or whatever. And he comes around, he's like, do you mind? I'm like, no. And I don't know what he's doing behind me, but Stacy's watching it and he does some stuff to me and to the back of my head and all this stuff. And I'll tell you this much. I don't know about the migraine, but I get this weird feeling all over my body. And my freaking mouth went numb, like I just rubbed cocaine all through my mouth, from what people tell me. And it was just very numb. And, you know, it kind of went away a little bit. I don't ever lie about that, though. I think it's important that you don't lie about stuff like that and just make people feel good. It was still hurting. Right. And, you know, it's a friggin' migraine. But there's a reason. My disc is out. Yes. And I've got 3 discs that are out. So it's not your traditional migraine. There's only so much a healer even could do. Right. But he took the edge off, you know, which I'm sure that's what he meant to do. So anyway, he knew the disc was out and he actually pointed to my left arm, which was weird, and knew that there was pain there. So he was doing really well with that.
He was barely even touching you.
Yeah, it was great. But this guy was just awesome. And we ended up talking every day. But speaking of awesome, somebody said, hey, there's a massage table. So they were like, there's a massage table. I'm like, oh, yeah? Yeah, it's $1 a minute. Oh, yeah, really? They're like, yeah. Oh, my God. I'll let you take this.
Well, I went over to check on the massage, and she was so nice. And she said, yes, it's $1 a minute, so you just pick how much you want to spend, how long you want the massage. And I said, well, my husband really needs it. His back's kind of hurting. And this was on Saturday. And so we found a time in between some of our lectures where he could go over there and do like a 20-minute massage. So I just went back to the booth, and I left him there with her, and she whooped him good. Just this little tiny woman. Little black girl. Yeah. And she is she hurt you.
She's adorable. She's cute as a button, and she has the hands of an NFL linebacker. So I guess I've never had a pro massage. And let me tell you, there are still pains in my back from her hands that I'm not sure will heal on their own. But I can turn my neck because normally I have to turn my shoulder. I've got old wrestler neck. Right. So I have to turn my whole shoulders usually to look behind me. I could turn my neck because I went back the next day and did an extra 5 minutes. And
by extra 5 minutes, he means 25 minutes, not just 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going again.
Yeah, which turned into 30.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got her card. Mm-hmm. I got her personal number.
He knows where the office is.
So in the office, it's full nude. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about this.
From what I hear, you were almost that way in
Yeah,
the middle of Scarefest.
Yeah, I came back the next day with my belt off. I was like, half undressed.
He was like, take these necklaces off of me. What am I doing?
It was amazing. Listen, guys, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this. This is a professional, all right? Mm-hmm. And oh my God, if you've never had one of these massages, it's not for wimps. I'll say that much.
Right.
Okay. It's not for the faint of heart. This girl is terrifying. And I sit there and told her, I was like, I would hate to get on your wrong side. She goes, I whoop a bitch's ass. She's like, look, I never had to fight a girl. She goes, I always fought boys. She goes, but I'd whip a bitch's ass. I was laughing, man. She was just amazing. Mm-hmm. And it was this weird thing between remarkable relief and horrific pain. But she knew exactly where I was hurting. She popped my hip into place. Mm-hmm. She had two hands in my booty. Mm-hmm. And she popped my hip into place. She popped my shoulder back into place. Mm-hmm. It was just nuts, right? So I'm going to be going to Lexington. Me and Stacy are going to be going.
We're going to be taking trips.
Quite a bit, and I just had to give a little shout out there on just the wowness of that. Speaking of the wowness, tell them about your ravens.
Oh yes, there's this couple there, and they own 2 ravens. They're like their personal pets, and the woman takes amazing care of them. They're beautiful animals, and they bring them to conventions, and they let you take pictures with them. So they have a younger one that stays in the cage because he's still pretty young. And for his safety, he stays in his cage. But the other one, they put on this prop thing, and there's a chair in front of it, and you sit there, and she'll give him commands, and he'll like pose certain ways, and they'll take your picture, and they give you props, and you get to put on costumes, and it's amazing. And I haven't gotten my pictures yet. I'm supposed to get them in a day or 2, but I can't wait to see them.
Yeah, I mean,
it was super.
It was cool. I mean, and they also had a wolf there, and Ariana got to take a picture of wolf because we brought the girls on the 3rd day, which was fine. It was good. I love having Ari there because Ari she's got her own style, and she gets all dressed up. That girl is so beautiful, and she gets all dressed up and just really just enjoys it. You could tell she belongs there. Mm-hmm.
She gave out cards. She's like, I want to give out cards, and so she stood in front of the table and handed cards out to people as they walked by.
Yeah.
And told them about the podcast.
She don't care. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite moments was she wanted to go see the Ghost Brothers. She wanted to go see the guys, and I was like, all right, baby. I was like, they might not remember you. You were on 1 episode in season 2. Mm-hmm, I was like, so they might not remember you. I get like halfway over there, and Marcus is like, hey! And he jumps out from line. He has a line full of people and comes over and gives me a hug, gives her a high five or a hug or something. And, so that was great. And they all 3 got a book, and and I just wanted another picture with them, so I go over there and we just talking it up, hugging. And I love those guys. Listen, those guys are the most genuine guys in the paranormal. I'm so happy for their new show because it is a new show. It might be season 3, but it's really a season 1 of a new show because it's done with different people. You can tell they're happier. They got more say in it, and they are just, they light it up because they're down to earth like we are. And, people love that, and they're genuine. They're just as nice in person as they are, people, can go and see them in a hallway. Right. And they'll stand there and really listen to them. Right.
They're not pretentious either.
Not at all.
They don't pretend like they have all this knowledge that they don't have. They don't know. They'll just be like, we don't know. But
they're quickly getting it. Yeah, and, and they've read every book they can. They've jumped in, they've dove in, study, and I think they're fantastic. And I think they deserve everything that can ever come to them and more. just because they're awesome, and I'm proud to call them a friend. Because I'm really excited about what they've got to offer.
They were some of the ones that got the wrestling pose.
Yes, they got the wrestling pose.
They all did it too.
Yeah, trying to look mean. Speaking of really cool people, I've got to say it. Kane Hodder, out of every celebrity that was there, okay, because unfortunately a lot of celebrities had to leave at 2 or took a lot of breaks or showed up late, left early,
left halfway through Sunday,
couldn't be there Sunday,
or just canceled
or just canceled or something like that. Kane Hodder kept the line, a huge line the entire time. Kane did not leave. He was the first to arrive, the last to leave. He was there past time every night. He was sitting there taking genuine time with every person, making every encounter a genuine encounter, assigning whatever they wanted signed, putting personal things on the messages, just being genuine, and remembering names. I've went through reading some of the forums, remembering names, remembering people from past years. Kane Hodder is a celebrity. He is a professional. He is a nice person who cares about his fans and believes in hard work. And his work ethic is second to none. I'm just going to put it out there. This guy is amazing and did a number on me as far as when I see somebody doing something that I believe in, then because we're like the ones, we're like, you know what, we're going to stay till 5. We're going to stay till 9. That's just who we are. And we believe in taking an interaction. And if it takes 45 minutes to talk to that person, not once are they going to look like, well, I think John wanted to move on.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
I hate it for the next person, and we'll try to accommodate them as well as I can. But I'm not going to take away from the interaction.
Right.
And, so I just wanted to give a shout out where it's due.
Super impressed.
On that. Yeah, I mean, super, super impressed on that. And this kind of brings me to the real highlight of the weekend. And that would be the Carters. And, you've heard us talk about Jeff Carter many times on the show. Jeff is our number one street team member. He is the number one sideshow off, and he really takes it to heart. He really, as a street team leader, he puts our website out there wherever he can. He gets the name out there. He's the most loyal listener we have. And through that, and, like I said, we talk to people. Through that, he's also become a great friend. And I'm glad to say that his lovely wife, Tanya, has also become a wonderful friend. And, they brought a youngin' with them. And, it was a great weekend with Jeff and Tanya. And we got to spend some quality time each and every day. We got to cut up with each other. We got to have a lot of fun. They got me a freaking present, and I tried getting Tanya a present, and it was a weird interaction. There was this woman, this sweet little woman that looked like she belonged in a gypsy tent on the side of the road. And I can tell where people are frauds or if they're real. And this woman was legit. And I could just pick it up off of her. I felt her energy. And I wanted to give Tanya a reading. They were getting ready to leave. And
it was Tanya's birthday.
It was Tanya's birthday. So I go back there and I'm like, I'll pay for this. And she goes, well, I'll trust you. Just come back when it's done. So I go back there. Jeff comes up there. He's like, it's done. So I go back there, and Tanya was just in tears. And it was so dead on. It was so great. And I was like, oh, my God. And the lady was talking to me like I was a family member.
Right.
And I wanted her to know that I wasn't, because I didn't want to know any information.
Right.
And so I was like, no. I have a booth up here, and it's her birthday, and she's so sweet. I wanted to get her a present. And the lady was like, no, I can't do that. You're a good person. I can't take your money. And I mean, that's what she's there for. Right. So I don't think she did that very much,
No,
and
I'd say not.
It was very special. It was a reading that was supposed to happen. That woman knew that. All this was supposed to happen. And that woman may have been there this weekend just for that.
Maybe.
And, Jeff and Tanya said it was dead on. Mm-hmm. I've given them a dead on reading before. I think these things sometimes are meant to happen. All I can say is that Jeff and Tanya they light up a room. They've got an infectious nature to them that is just, the laughing, relax, have a good time. And
they did seem like they had a really good time.
I believe so. And it's just, it was wonderful to have them around. It really was. It was wonderful to be able to spend some time with them. And that's one of the things I love about doing the show. I always have, because of meeting our new friends that, the ones that are supposed to happen. And, Jeff, Tanya, just from us to you, thank you so much for making this weekend special. We love you very much. And, we just wanted to make sure that you knew that and that how much it meant to us. I do want to have to mention something here. There was a moment, speaking of moments, that I'll never forget. See, Stacy. Stacy's such a sweetheart. Stacy nary says a bad word about anyone, anything. You can have a Rottweiler at our front porch frothing at the mouth with a rabbit hanging out of its mouth and just wanting to eat us, and she would be like, well, poor little thing. I mean, Stacy's just that way. She catches bugs, people. She catches freaking bugs and lets them out of the house instead of killing them, okay? This is just who I'm married to. And I'm not complaining. I'm really happy about this, that I'm married to somebody like this, that I'm married to a beautiful soul. I'm married to a wonderful woman. I'm married to somebody who sees the good in people, someone who sees the love in people. And that makes me happy. But man, she's an asshole. And,
I am not.
And she don't mean to be an asshole, but when she's an asshole, she is a Morton Downey Jr. asshole. I am telling you.
I was not mean.
The funniest thing that I blew snot out of my nose. Okay. And everybody was standing there. I believe the whole crew. I believe it was Jeff, Alan, friend Daryl, everybody, right? So it was late in the evening.
On Saturday.
And somebody said, hey, there's a stormtrooper. And I popped because I love when people are in, gear or whatever and really playing the part.
Right.
So this stormtrooper looked fantastic.
Yeah.
It has a little microphone inside, like, sorry, sir.
So the voice is really mechanical.
Yeah. Sorry, sir. So I'm like, oh, hell, hey, stormtrooper, come over here, So anyway, Stacy is standing right next to our room or our pod or our little whatever, our curtain.
I was in front of the table.
So she can't see the stormtrooper till the stormtrooper gets over. So the stormtrooper comes around the corner and she goes, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper?
It's the line from the movie.
It was the exact line from the movie. She
if
did.
He's gonna be a stormtrooper.
She did it like Leia, but you got to understand, Stacy. How tall are you?
5'5".
So was the stormtrooper. Okay, so this stormtrooper was also male.
He said, ma'am. He said, ma'am, I think you'll find him exactly the right size. And then he said, you could have said, I always miss. Yeah. The other joke would have been just fine. And what was funny is it really got the guy. And of course, me and all my asshole friends, as soon as she said it, it was all. Well, to be fair, you guys didn't laugh really hard until after we took a picture, and then he walked away, and then you guys kind of lost it.
No, I lost it the whole time.
I know you did.
I don't know who you're talking about. I was laughing the whole time, but yeah, it was so funny. I mean, it was just poor guy. It was just so.
Hey, if you're gonna dress up like a stormtrooper, you're gonna have to know the movie. Okay.
I am telling you,
it was so funny because all I could picture was, somebody running out of the bathroom going, the Stormtroopers committed suicide. But there's like 29 laser blasts on the wall. It took him a long time to get it. But yeah, he never came back by. Not a single time did I get to see a Stormtrooper unless I walked by their table when they would turn around every single time. Like, I think the fandom itself may have just dismissed us after that. But
It's not my fault. Overly sensitive Stormtroopers. Sorry.
That was great. Well, in keeping with John fashion, I'm going to take it down a notch here. I want to give a quick shout out and a rest in peace to my former tag team partner back 19 years ago. I shared the tag team titles for an APW, a little Tennessee hardcore outfit in pro wrestling, and I also carried the heavyweight strap because of this man, because he was also the owner and promoter of this particular federation. Mm-hmm. I was best friends with his son and took his son on some fun trips and still remain friends with his son to this day. There's been a lot of, as always, there's been a lot of drama back and forth over the years, but I've never, as much as I've been other places and everybody wants me to bury them all the time, I just won't do it. It's one of those things. It is what it is, right? We all live different lifestyles. And we all have a different way of doing things. Who's to judge who? And all I know is that at one time I called him my friend. We shared a lot of drinks. We shared a lot of missing blood. Mm-hmm. We bled gallons together. Mm-hmm. I had to be his tag team partner where he would never tag in because he was already in the twilight of his career. And that was horrific. I remember going over for a hot tag and he'd be like, "Going back." I'm like, God. So we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs, and he just passed away. So rest in peace, Mike Spade, which was his wrestling name, Mike Duggar. Just wanted to, immortalize it here for the show because I do incorporate both the wrestling and everything into this.
So I've got something for the intro here.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people ask us, and we've been asked recently quite a few times, about different questions about paranormal investigating.
Right.
How do I get into it if I've never done it before?
We do get asked that a lot.
Do you have any, tips, or do you have any information, any guidance you can give me to better what I'm doing? Lots of different things like that. We get, emails and messages.
Right.
And when we were at Scarefest, we had several people
absolutely ask
us in person. And so we thought we'd start a new segment on the show. Now, at first, we had an entire, 2-hour 101 presentation, but because the length of the show is so long, and sometimes 101s can be a little boring.
Right.
Yeah. We thought that we would just put a new segment in here where we just give you a tip, every week, hopefully every show.
Right. Well, you're kind of shooting this on me a little bit because I know we talked about it and we did have a presentation ready, but
we did.
So the deal is, do you have a name for it?
No.
I mean, it's your idea, so I just didn't know if you had a name. It's got to have a name.
Well, I mean, I didn't think it needed a name. I thought it was pretty self-explanatory.
Right.
That we're going to just give it,
Still needs a name.
Okay.
Well, I got it. Do you have a name?
I don't have a name.
I
didn't get that far.
Can I suggest one?
Sure.
How about John and Stacy's Just the Tip of the Week?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's catchy, right?
Right. Well, if we're keeping with every other time I've heard you say that phrase, just the tip, then we'll be giving the tip and you'll still have the full presentation.
Good point.
Exactly.
No. I mean, seriously, good point. But I promise, just the tip, baby.
Okay.
All right.
I've heard that before.
No, seriously. So we're going to do, this is it. And I've got a perfect one.
Okay, you want to start?
Well, I mean, did you have one?
I mean,
I see
sure.
you've got stuff written over there. Do you want to?
No. I'll let you. I brought it to the table. If you have something you'd like to present for the first, just the tip, then you go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, just off the top of my head, I've got an idea because, we're always getting asked, how do we get into it? all that jazz, and what's the best ways to get into it. And before I get into any kind of, well, here's this kind of team or that kind of team, you more than likely are already a fan of the paranormal, or you've been severely haunted and terrorized since you were a child, one or the other. So if the latter is the case, then just seek therapy. If it's the first one, then I can work with that. So on that one, of course, I'm just kidding. You can still play along. On the first one here, do you want to be in the paranormal? Well, here's the best thing you can do on the cheap. Okay, because we all want to live on the cheap. It's tough times, right? Go to your local Best Buy or wherever, and I would do a little research first. Everybody has their own preference is the problem, and you're going to end up buying like 50 recorders before you actually get something that you really dig. And when you get it, for me, a digital recorder is much like a protection stone. It has to be right, and it also picks up little segments of everything you ever do. And I swear to God that my first recorder is haunted. And it just is. I believe it has trapped souls in it, like Ghostbusters box or something. But with that said, we've had so many recorders. And we've tried everything. We've tried from the Zoom, we've tried the monos, we've tried the stereos, everything you can imagine. We've tried a room with like 17 microphones, all going in different directions. Seriously. And that was really tedious.
It was very overwhelming.
Because guess who goes over the evidence on audio? Me. Stacy's video, I'm audio. But anyway, the best thing I can tell you, really, to really get a knack for it and get into the part of it that we love, because this is from ours, and everybody's going to have their own perspective. Everybody's going to have their own ideas. All right. So you already probably have a basic understanding of call and response. Well, let me just let you know that is not always like you see. It's definitely not like you hear. The best way that we have found over, the last couple decades of doing this is, maybe find a graveyard that you're not going to get kicked out of, or if somebody has a haunting in their home, try not to do it in your home. And if you do, absolutely open a session and close the session much like you would a Ouija board. We've talked about it a million times. We're done with this session. We're now closing this out. You're not allowed to be here. Blah blah blah.
We don't want to talk to you right now.
That kind of stuff. Just for your protection. Okay. Set the ground rules. It's your rules. It's your game. So that's the thing. Digital recorder is just like any kind of communication device. Be it metaphysical, be it a board, be it whatever. Okay, it's the same kind of thing. You're opening a door and you're saying, "Hey, I want to talk, ghost." Okay, let's talk. Ha ha ha. Okay, so I'm just saying they're not all like that, but there is 1 in 1,000 that is. So let's just say you're at the graveyard, all right, and that it's not raining or a windstorm. And you had some really good luck, which is usually nighttime for me. But either that or a friend's house, whatever. Don't go there looking for like Edwin. Okay, like if you're at a friend's house and Edwin had died by a tragic ingrown toenail 3 weeks before or something, especially 3 weeks before. Let's say 3 years before. Don't just go in there. Edwin, are you here? Okay, because it could totally not be Edwin. And that's the whole thing. This is where they trick you. They're snickerdoodles. They're very, really tricky. So make sure that you are, generalizing. Like, may I know who I'm speaking with? Be pleasant. I know you've heard someone out there before, but in case you haven't, when you come in somebody's house, just imagine it's your house, and some stranger wearing some weird acronym on his shirt just kicked in your door, comes down, steps on your dog, sits on the couch, hands down the pants, leans back, relaxing, and yells right in your face, going, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you here?" And he gives you like 2 seconds, and he asks you another question. You're like, "I always have to eat." Just completely the rudest house guest ever. Well, here's what's going to happen. After you attempt to punch him 1,000 times, you're going to remember you're a ghost. And it's just not doing anything. And he's going, "I feel a cold spot. Are you doing the cold spot?"
Yes, it's doing the cold spot because it's trying to kill you. But when it figures out it can't do that, it's going to sit over there with its arms crossed, really mad. Okay? Really, really mad. And if you're lucky enough not to have it jump on your back, go to your house and actually, do bad things to your cat, then you're going to be lucky. So my thing is our thing is we go in, hey, we try to establish who's there. We do some quick burst. Okay. Go back, try to see if you can hear any kind of name. Maybe if you don't get a response like that, then you can get a little more specific. And maybe yes and no's, okay? We don't know what kind of energy we're dealing with. Of course, at the same time, the best sense you're ever going to have is the ones that you possess with your smell, your touch, your hearing, your senses, your goosebumps. I mean, it's all relative to the investigation. And, so definitely a good EVP session, if you do have a camcorder, it's perfect to be camcordering this EVP session, all right? Because it just validates your findings.
Mm-hmm.
You can match them up.
And also shows if anybody's making any noise or if there's anybody in there that you didn't remember, because you're not going to remember every single thing that happens.
You will forget. We all do. Mm-hmm. So we all have to battle that in case somebody's stomach makes a noise, Stacy. And, we have to battle that. I mean, Tim Clark, my good friend, his stomach used to sound like the seventh layer of hell. And I mean, we would be sitting across a sanitarium from each other, and I would hear,
maybe that's how the spirits communicated, through Tim's stomach.
You know what? We actually came up, I swear to God, I had a theory one night, and I had him buying it. I was like, what if they can only communicate using us? Because we had a theory where sometimes when we talked to Tim Woolworth about this, sometimes when we speak, if it's in another room, sometimes on the recorder, it seems like the spirit may manipulate those sound waves and give us some evidence.
Right.
We had a piece of evidence one time at Major Graham that was the best capture of all time that we later found out was legitimately somebody in the other room that was not saying anything close to the Class A.
Right.
That was clear to like 10 people. Clearly saying what we thought it said. But no, that's why triple checking, quadruple checking.
Right.
Have a recorder on it. If you can, have a video on it. If not, use your camera phone. I mean, everybody's got that normally. You can video a short session. But give space, for the love of God, in between your questions. Please leave space for them to answer.
Sometimes it takes them a minute.
It does. Or it takes them a minute to even figure out what you're doing.
Right.
If you're not in a paper boo. If you're not in a place like that where
they're used to it.
Yeah, where they're used to it, where they do it every night. And we'll get to another one of our things that we use on that point at another time. But with the EVP sessions, you've got your recordings, you've done all that. Let's say you did a 10-minute session, a 25-minute session. You seem like you're getting some good knocks, you're getting everything. And you do a 45-minute session, whatever. All right, it's the best to break them up if you can into 20 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that.
Right.
Sometimes you'll forget and you'll go 2 hours. Trust me. But also, it's really smart to remember when you're listening back and reviewing, it's really a best practice to not just put headphones into your digital recorder. It's a best practice to download it into your computer, use your headphones, and make sure you're in a quiet room, and visualize where you were. Think about where you were. We'll go into a whole thing about review later, but just software wise, there's a lot of good free software out there. If you don't want to pay for the Premiere or the expensive ones, they still work and you can still make files off of them. So like an Audacity, that's a free one that we've used in the past. And it's a good place to start. So you start getting evidence and you start getting that feel for it. And just like throwing a baseball, just like throwing a football, the more you do it, the better you are. and we'll get to the other steps later. So if you are not just beginning, which I know a lot of you are seasoned, I hope that you can also provide some of your own thoughts and feedback for people that are just starting. Send us a message. Send us what you think a good tip would be. And, we'd love to use your tip.
So let me just recap the tips so that everybody knows exactly what, we're saying. If you're beginning, then the best place to begin on the cheap is to get a digital recorder and just go somewhere and do some EVP sessions. Make sure you open and close the session. Say that you're there to communicate. And then when you're finished, say you are done. And break up your sessions into little pieces so that they're easier to review. Good. Is that basically the tip this week?
Yeah, it is. And Audacity or some kind of, please don't review it on your recorder. It's okay, like in real time. But you're going to want to have it on the computer so you can eventually learn how to enhance if you need to.
And save it.
Yeah. For me personally, I don't enhance unless it's part of a longer EVP. I normally throw those out. So that's just me. I did it first, but if it's not clear enough for me to hear, then it probably wasn't talking to me in the first place.
But that's that. And on to bigger, brighter things. If you haven't visited paranormalsideshow.com, I don't know what you're waiting for, because it is new and improved, because the Mistress Raja has went on there and made it the most amazing paranormal website that you will ever see for a paranormal podcast. We take this serious, and we are seriously cooking right now because we got some cool things on there, and it also has links to everywhere you might want to go. In fact, a lot of new shirts are out from us. If you want to support us and be a sideshow off yourself, you can go get some really amazing gear from Paranormal Sideshow, some shirts with original artwork that, again, Raja has put a lot of work into. They are the ideas of mine for the most part, so you're getting my ideas put onto the shirts by an actual artist, and so a lot of Raja goes into it as well. Stacy has her thoughts that go in there, so it's really a group effort. But you can also buy the book there as well, and get the personal autograph from us. We will put whatever you want us to put in it. We'll draw a picture of something if you want us to, whatever you want. We're easy to get along with. But you can also become a patron there, and becoming a patron just helps us with the show, helps us with the bandwidth. We do some pretty long shows sometimes, or most of the time, and we run out. Even though we choose one of the largest things you can, we run out of that bandwidth sometimes after one episode. I'm not whining and crying here, but I am saying we don't take a dime worth of advertising money. So everything we do is crowd-funded or John-funded at the moment. And, so every dime counts and goes to it. I know a lot of places do advertising, and they will talk about their sponsors. A long time ago, we decided we weren't taking sponsors because we never wanted someone to be able to say we couldn't say something.
Right.
And that's the reason we haven't done that. Now, if the day comes when somebody says, hey, we'll sponsor your show, we're not going to mess with your content, then we may take them up on that out of necessity, if nothing else, because of all the new listeners we've been picking up and the bandwidth we have and everything we have to put into it, which is quite a bit. So I wanted to explain that patron. I know I make a lot of jokes sometimes, but really that's the story behind it. Is it all goes back 1,000% into the podcast, into upgrading headphones, in upgrading microphones, upgrading computers, whatever it takes, and having the bandwidth required to, continue to do what we're going to do. Now, listen, we're always going to do this for you. We are. But it's just one of those ways to support your favorite, support your local gunfighter kind of thing. So I just wanted to put that out there. And if you haven't done it, if you haven't been following the Facebook, a lot of people have. It's an exciting thing to follow because I put some funny stuff up there. And also we go live quite often now on Facebook. So we have some trips coming up to New York, Boston, Philadelphia within the next 30 days. In that time, we'll be live streaming quite a bit from New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. So if you want to see us walking down the street to Times Square and having some fun and all that stuff, be sure to go to facebook.com/Paranormal Sideshow. Again, the link can be found on paranormalsideshow.com. That's a good place to go just to find everything. I do want to also mention, Stacy is currently working on something, so I'm not going to put a timeline on this because things happen. But we're working on making some cool little content videos for YouTube. You've seen them before if you have ever watched like Joe Rogan clips, like JRE clips, where they take little parts of the show and they make a YouTube video out of it, maybe put a graphic up with it or something simple. On the wrestling end of it, Jim Cornette does it quite often, does it really well. Well, we're going to do that with some of the better clips of the show. And, you know, like if we're talking about something funny, the Stormtrooper thing, you know, we might put that up there with a Stormtrooper, you know, piece of art or something.
Right.
And just start putting this out there. We have been gaining a lot of subscribers mysteriously on YouTube because we haven't been putting up any new content other than the podcast.
Right.
But we've been getting a lot of subscribers on there. So the more that happens, the merrier. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, I implore you to go ahead and do that now. Yes. Because you're going to be seeing a lot of cool little content that will be starting there.
I also want to say about the YouTube channel, I re-uploaded our documentary, the Major Graham Mansion documentary. It's on there twice. The first time something happened with the video and the sound is messed up and I never could figure out how to get it to work properly. So I just uploaded it again. So it's on there. If you tried to watch it and had a problem, then you can go watch it now in full. And it should work properly.
And we didn't want to take the first one down because honestly, it's got 100,000 views.
Well, that, and I went through the comments and put the new link up for people that said they had problems. That's how I knew that there was a problem, to give them time to direct them to where they could actually watch it. So.
Okay. Well, good deal. And with that said, I think it's about time for some paranormal news.
She's the GOAT of paranormal news, traveling the globe to find you the stories you didn't know you needed to hear, and the stories she knows you'll never forget. It's time for Stacey Edwards and Paranormal News.
All right, so let's get into the news.
Let's talk about, I didn't think that this was going to be actually able to happen.
It's been difficult.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me.
I don't know the rest of those
Some
words.
moved your head to the side and said, "How you doing?" Something like that. So a couple things. They don't make heating pads that get hot anymore.
Right.
I just thought I should put that statement out there for anyone who had a heating pad that was left to you by a dead grandmother, and you turned it on and you used to fall asleep with it and it burned your buns or whatever. Put it around your neck and, leaves like 3rd-degree burns. I like that. I feel like I know you've been there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I like a little pain. So the thing is, I bought this new heating pad. And it's not because I'm old or anything like that. It's because I was a professional wrestler.
Right.
Okay. And I don't care if you do it for 20 years or 50 years. If you throw yourself intentionally onto a hard set of wood or onto concrete once or twice, you're probably going to be, people actually go in through life and they slip on a floor and they get a check. Okay.
Right.
I purposely have thrown myself off of rings into floors and pile driven into concrete. And I still don't get a check except from work.
Right. But you do use a heating pad.
I do. People get the busy legs.
I get that.
Yeah. I get retired legs. And I don't know what happens, but I'll have I have muscular legs. And I'll have healthy, good-looking, muscular legs, and then all of a sudden, I can lay down to watch some television, and I have cocoon legs. It's like overnight, there's a bunch of old people in a pool in a movie I don't really understand, but to be fair, I haven't went back and watched it since I was 10.
Right.
But it's all of a sudden, I look down, and it's like elderly legs, and I'm like, what the hell happened?
And you just want to move to Florida.
Yeah, I just don't know what happened, and they hurt like the Dickens, Stacey.
That's pretty bad.
The Dickens. That's what the old people say.
It is. I don't know how much Dickens hurt, but it's got to be pretty bad.
Dickens must have hurt pretty bad. Oh no! Here comes Dickens. I'm gonna get you.
There could only be one Dickens because he's the Dickens.
Well, maybe there's several. Like he's got sons, so you got Big Dickens. And he's the one you really got to watch out for.
Right.
Just guessing. So with Big Dickens aside and the heating pad fiasco, well, the heating pad fiasco is two things. It's two parts. So the one I had covered my legs completely. Now, once again, I've worked out since 5th grade legs, and they're freaking muscular. I'm sorry. Anybody want to feel, you can come feel. I'm pretty proud of my legs. Okay. You can like make diamonds with my calves. But anyway, when they hurt, hurts a lot worse because of that. So this comfortable, loving, incredible, just wonderful heating pad that I had that I never bought. I don't know. It just showed up someday, and all of a sudden it was there. We moved and it would be there, and it'd be like, hey. And I didn't need it until I needed it. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, and I fell asleep in this nice little content sleep. It was really nice, and it felt really good on my muscles. So then it just, I've used the dickens out of it for months and months and months. It hasn't been years. I've been using it for like 6 months.
Right.
But every day, every night. And all of a sudden I got like this F signal on it because I always put it up to 6. And I don't know if it's like F you.
It's like, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done.
I'm done.
So it just overloaded and died on me. And I tried resuscitating it, and I had a service for it earlier. So I go straight to the Mart of Hell, and I pick out the biggest one I could find, which was like 12 by 24. Still not as big as the one I had, but I put it on, and it was like the most expensive one they had, so it's the best, right? That's my philosophy. I'm easy mark. But I put it on, and I keep waiting, First of all, it felt like the pee pants. The material felt like the pee pants that we used to talk about, the kids that would pee in their pants at school.
Right. It's vinyl material.
Yeah, like the rubber like pee pants. So right off the bat, you're wearing freaking parachute pants. So that's nasty. And so I put it on, and I keep waiting, and at the most, you ever get one of those like you remember living in like a crappy place where the shower really didn't get hot. It never got hot. It got lukewarm.
Right.
And you just want to go find this guy named Luke and beat the poo out of him. Because I don't know where it came from. I don't know who the Luke guy was that never actually got hot. I don't know if he's some mild-mannered guy somewhere in time.
Right.
It's like, hey, Luke, you mad about that guy taking your wife? Oh, I suppose I'm mad. Hold on. Damn that guy. Come on, Luke. You're only lukewarm. I don't know where it came from.
I don't know.
He's not Luke hot. So I was like, all right, we're taking this blasted thing back. Blasted, another old word. It needs to make a comeback. I like blasted.
It's a good one.
Yeah, that Stormtrooper liked blasted too. So anyway, we go back to Walmart. I said it. I don't want to give them love. We'll let that one slide. So I go back to that place. Well, I don't. Stacy goes back, and I said, get me the furry one. There was one that was furry and it felt good. It was like, yeah, it's a smaller pet, but it's cuter. And I was like, as long as it gets
doesn't
hot,
feel like pee pants.
No, it don't feel like pee pants. As long as it's like alpaca fur or something. I don't know. As long as it gets hot, I don't care. And so I put it on, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. I'm still waiting, and it's not ever got warm. I mean, this thing is even worse than Luke. I don't even know how to put it. She's as cold as ice.
Maybe yours had like some kind of weird short in it, and that's why it got so hot.
No, because my old one had the option that if I wanted to leave it on and possibly die,
right,
you could do that. These are all like 2-hour shut off, like it's a feature.
It is. Yours has that, but you can bypass it.
Yeah. So I looked them up. I went to Amazon. Okay, and I found them. By God, I found them.
Yeah, they're an extra large express heat heating pad. And I did find one locally.
Yeah, did you really?
I did. We'll have to go get it tomorrow. They're closed now.
Oh my God. Oh, I hope that it's like lawsuit burn. Because I won't sue you. I really want to be burned. But anyway, the reason I didn't think this was going to happen is not because of the heating pad, but everybody needs to know things like that. That's like good consumer advice from John and Stacy. So the reason I didn't think this was going to happen, because we did the first part of the show that you just listened to, and it all seems like it just happened to you. The reality of it all is that happened like 2 nights ago. And then we were going to go, we always take a break. First part, break, second part. And we went into second part because we have to reload, man. Before we do this part, we have to reload.
Right.
So we did our reload and we played our games. We conversed. We did all that stuff. # mommy daddy time. And we come back over and start the show. And all of a sudden my headphones are like, zzz, zzz, zzz. And it was weird, but it wasn't really coming from my headphones. It was like general vicinity, but they were sitting away from me. You got to understand, they were on another table. So we just watched them, and then I started communicating, and it was answering me. It was answering what I was asking, and it seemed like it wanted to converse. And then there was other knocks and other little things. So we did this for what felt like 30 minutes. But Stacy goes, "Oh my God, it's been 2 hours." And of course it's # Bruce Wayne job work night. So I had to go to bed. We couldn't do it because of this, but we communicated. We did spirit box. I mean, we did the whole 9 yards, and we had to. It was really strange, but regardless, it falls under the it is what it is. And here we are now. Yay. Ready to go with some blockbuster, wonderful news. And for that, I will turn it over to the lovely and talented Miss Stacy.
All right, so let's get to the news.
Let's.
All right, so this first story is huge, and I know that everyone has to have seen it. It's making the rounds on all the big networks. It's mainstream, and I know you were getting aggravated because people were calling you, asking you about it, and it's a story that's been going on for over a year, and they're just now catching on.
It's like, have you listened to my show?
Do you look at the website?
Basically, dude, people literally, mainstream people of mine that, because I have normal people that I know too. And those people are getting hold of me. And it made me mad because of the way they're saying it.
Right.
Blink 182 discovered aliens. Did you hear?
And you're like, did you read the article?
Yeah, I'm like, no. I actually had somebody send me an article that says Blink 182 discovered aliens.
Yeah. Now, some of the articles are really out there with their headlines that's just trying to, clickbaity headlines.
It was on Tucker Carlson again last night, from what I hear, and they, they had to go to on there. I think they keep Nick Pope in a closet, but, what do you think about Nick Pope? Hey! And that's it from Nick. But I don't know, man. It's I know you're going to get into the story, and this could be the biggest news of our life. It could be the thing we look back to and say, well, this is the biggest news of mankind.
So the story is that the U.S. Navy has acknowledged that the footage that you've been seeing, the videos of the UFOs, the UAPs, they have acknowledged that those are unidentified, that they are real videos, that they are unidentified, and that they don't know what they are.
Right.
And for them to come out and officially acknowledge that there is something flying around in our skies and they have no idea what it is huge.
Yes. It's gigantic. And also they said that it should never have come out.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing that's been going back and forth, because I know we talked on the other show with the whole statement from Lou Elizondo where people were accusing him of releasing it when he shouldn't have. And then they had the Freedom of Information Act, and they had the emails where it looked like perhaps it was okay. I think the problem with this is, and I don't have a really firm grasp on it, but I believe that the emails were like with Pentagon people who were like, yes, release them. And the Navy is the one that said these should not have been released. So maybe there was some sort of communication
they said
error
it's
there.
Declassified now. So
right. Well, I mean, it's too late now. But let me just go through sort of the history of the videos, just for those of your friends that maybe might listen to the show now.
Yeah.
that
a lot
are
of
not
people,
caught up.
a lot of people said they were going to tune in because everybody's excited. I don't think it's the fact that it's hit the mainstream as much as it hit the local stream.
It did.
It hit the AP. So all of your local news stations, BUT, all that stuff, WTIT, they've all...
That would be your radio station or your TV station.
They've all come out and said, with the same story, you know how they are.
Right.
They all read the same copy 50 million times. So it just went into the homes of people that,
that don't really follow this sort of thing.
Right. People that say Dickens.
Right. Okay, so back in December of 2017, that's how long this has been going on.
Yeah.
The story broke about the secret Pentagon project, the AATIP. And that's sort of back about the same time the To the Stars Academy formed and started, and they had these videos that they released periodically. Now, the first one that they released is called the FLIR 1 footage. I think they also called this the Tic Tac video. And it was the oblong floating object. It did all this weird stuff. It went up and down, all the maneuvers they couldn't explain. So that was the first video. It was filmed in November of 2004. So that was the very first video chronologically that they had.
Right.
So then there were 2 other videos that were filmed at the same time. They were both filmed in January of 2015. One of them was, they call it Gimbal, and the other one they call Go Fast. And this is the one where you have the pilots talking to each other and making comments and going, what is that? And oh my God. And it took them a minute to catch it. And there was multiple sightings of it. And those are the ones I think that you see more often than the Tic Tac video. So those are the 3 videos that were released. And, To the Stars Academy did the show on History Channel, the Unidentified Show. And there's been a lot of controversy around the whole thing. Should this have been out? Should this not have been out? So this new article, the Navy spokesperson, his name is Joe Gradisher, he has confirmed on the record,
Right.
these are declassified military footage. They are authentic. They are real. They are unidentified aerial phenomena, which is the word that is used now. And they do not know what they are.
Yeah, well, that's a lie. So they know what it is. The fact that they admitted it, that's awesome. Do you really believe that this is like getting the admission from somebody who cheated on you, but they don't tell you everything? They're like, yes, I was in the hotel with him. Yes, we were naked. We did nothing. He read me sonnets. And when I mean,
Right.
This is basically that move from the government where they're just not going to tell you because they're the government. It's like having that chronic liar friend. The government is a big John Lovitz. It's just like, yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah, it's UFO, UAPs. It's we always said there was no UFOs. Yeah, because there wasn't. There was UAPs. That was the ticket. Oh, and then that's what I see. Is that should be the government spokesperson on every time we watch the government and or the Navy or whoever, like, just come out there and go, okay. Well, you got us on that one, guys. I mean, come on. Listen, just like we were telling you 10 years ago, guess what? UFOs are real. They're visiting us. There's abductions that are real. This is all actually happening, and it's happening now. And it is a problem. It is an issue. And I'm sorry, but you can have some third world country throw a Coke bottle at us. Okay, and we're going to see it, and we're going to blast everything, and it's going to be a snippet on the bottom of the newspaper. It's like a couple of weeks back, it's like the United States dropped 5 million bombs, and and it wasn't even the main story. The main story was some political bullcrap arena stuff that they want to show you the circus instead of showing you, the fact that they dropped all these bombs. I mean, that's how serious we take our defense. We're the biggest, we're the best. We are the United States. We have the technology to know that there's something buzzing around our sky. And if you think for a second, for a moment, for a millisecond, you think that they know there's unidentified objects up there and we don't know what they are, then I have some, oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you right now, because it's ridiculous to think that. And I don't think that a single person listening to this show believes that, namely because I converse with so many of you. I know most people feel the same way, but there is this select group, I don't know, the 70% that believe whatever's fed to them, especially if it's fed to them enough. Like the first day, they might be a little resistant. I don't know. That doesn't seem right. They drink a little tap water, get a little chlorine, get a little fluoride, and they're just the fluoride starts taking effect the next day, and they're kind of like, They get their flu shot. They're like, oh, and they keep going through it, and they take their antidepressant, and all of a sudden they're just like, honey, is that rerun of Friends on? The government is wonderful. They wouldn't lie to us. UAP gone away. I mean, I think they know they can do that. The thing that scared me today is when I seen that, or yesterday, the thing that scared me is when it came out, I was like looking around to make sure there wasn't going to be some disaster.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This was such a big thing, and it was so sudden, and it made such a huge impact that you almost have to look and see what else is going on that they're trying to possibly
that's what
distract
I'm
you
worried
from.
I'm worried that hasn't happened.
Right.
I'm worried that that's getting ready to happen, just because they didn't want to come out with this. And obviously they begrudgingly did this.
Right.
Just because too many people, they tried throwing shade. And I said when it came out, I said when they were throwing that shade on it, that right there is all the proof you need. They have their little minions that come out there and, the majority or whatever, and they're just, outraged. Which is crap, right? Obviously, they're trying to cover this up or throw any kind of shade on it to make you not. When we say throw shade, it does just that. It darkens it. You don't look at it.
Right.
And I really believe that was the deal. That didn't work because it was too good, especially if you watched Unidentified and you seen the faces of the military people that were sitting there going, I was in charge of this and this is what happened. It was actually far more than that 5-second clip you seen. In fact, there was a whole fleet of these bastards and we couldn't engage, and
they really had no idea what they were looking at.
They didn't,
right.
But that's the rank and file. That's the everyday boots on the ground.
Right.
People like me and you. Those people are just putting their lives on the line to save us. It's the pencil pusher, bureaucratic, military industrial complex assholes that know everything and, run the world.
Right.
So, and I hope one of them's listening right now, because if I'm not on the top of the list, put me there, baby, because I'm telling you right now, you're full of crap. This has been a real phenomenon since at least the late 40s. The first real abduction thing wasn't Betty and Barney Hill, as much as they would like to glorify it, and it was amazing, yes. But there was some dude in a field in another country, that had this experience where they took him up, and it was I know it was in the 40s, but I don't know exactly when. I'm just saying. This stuff, you got hundreds of thousands of people. That's not just sightings. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people that have these abduction stories that have all lined up. And, it's just ridiculous. We can look at this and we can play around and it becomes, you're a little immune to it because they make the movies and they make all this Hollywood stuff. It doesn't even seem like it's real. It seems like it's one of these things we look at like Wolfman, They make movies of that too, and it's one of those things that's always been joked about. I told Stacy earlier, I hope they do catch on with UAPs and don't call it UFOs because they put such a bad taste in everyone's mouth with UFOs that it becomes a joke. But it pisses me off. It makes me mad because of the fact that they are not telling us something that is obviously a threat.
Right.
If you abduct me, and it's obviously against my will, because I never signed anything saying, I'm okay for this. Not saying I wouldn't. If a Gray showed up right now and said, hey, can I zap you up here and let you make love to one of the other Grays that looks like Jennifer Love Hewitt in your mind? Sure. I mean, I'm not sure that's cheating because, it's a gray alien.
Because it's a medical thing.
It's a medical procedure. It's just a medical procedure. They're a little bit more advanced than us,
right.
So I wouldn't get mad at you either. We could pick whoever you want. So it'd be Paul Bettany and, Jennifer Love Hewitt would be getting crazy up there. For our luck, they would get on each other.
They'd be like, oh.
Dang it. We should have went down a level.
Well, just to be clear, it's like you said, even though they've admitted this much, they still have not, it's not disclosure. They have not said, just for those people who saw the headlines that said Tom DeLonge discovered aliens. nobody in the government said aliens. So they didn't, for us, they didn't have to, but that's not been on the record yet. The only thing, I mean, they've given you the little crumb. That's all they're giving you, crumbs. And they've given the next crumb, yes, these are real and they're unidentified. But that's all they would say. They wouldn't speculate on anything else.
It's the big read between the lines.
It is. I agree.
You know, I think they want to say it. Mm-hmm. At this point, I believe more people want to say it than don't. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they would love to have us stop Freedom of Information Act requests. At least the person in that office.
Right.
Because it's just Susan. Right?
Can you imagine the first day they said you could do those Freedom of Information Act requests and just the inpouring of requests they must have gotten?
I would like to find the woman that was in the Library of Congress, and they come in there because they're looking for somebody to do FOIA.
Right.
And they're just opening up FOIA. And they come in there and they're like, Susan, we have a promotion for you.
Right. It'll be a lot less work.
It's a lot less work.
Nobody will ever ask for anything.
And we'll just give them red tape. I mean, that's your job is red tape. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to promote you. We're going to give you 15 cents more an hour. And if this was 1975, that would translate into freaking dollars and dollars. So look at it like that. Right. And, so I like to imagine there's one person.
I know.
And as long as it takes to get some of these back, mm-hmm. I have to believe there may be.
They're just like sitting at a desk with papers stacked up.
Yeah, just everywhere.
Like in a cartoon.
Just everywhere. But, the funny thing is you do get these things back and they're just, it's so redacted. I think sometimes they just have fun with it. It's like, you know that one YouTube video that went around like a decade ago and we laughed so hard about it, but it was the Count from Sesame Street.
Yes.
And he was doing the song where it sounds like he's cussing through the whole thing. Right,
because they censored it so that they took out the word count. Was it the word count? Every time he said count, they would censor it. So it made it sound like your mind just makes it sound dirty.
So to me, this is what happens when they redact the papers they give us. Here it is, guys.
You know that I am called the Count because I really love to. Sometimes I sit and all day, but sometimes I get carried away. I slowly getting faster. Once I start it's very hard to stop. Hey, faster, it is so exciting. I could forever until I drop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. I love whatever the amount. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. That's the song of the Count.
Break it down.
The spiders on the wall.
Oh no, I remember this part.
I the cobwebs in the hall. I the candles on the shelf. When I'm alone, I myself. I slowly.
We're getting faster.
Once I start thinking, it's very hard to stop. Faster. It is so exciting. I could forever until I drop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. I love whatever the amount. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. That's the song. Oh, the Count.
Wow. That's great.
Oh, slowly getting
It
fast.
makes you laugh every time.
Oh, come on. If that's not funny, you're dead.
That is very funny. All right. Are we ready to move on to another story?
I believe we may be, but I just want those government people to know I'm watching the dickens out of you.
I do want to say, you were talking about the redacted things, with the song. I wonder how many times they send out a memo that has nothing to do with what people are asking for. Like, it's just a memo about the bathroom being repaired.
That's what I'm joking
but then,
about.
Like,
yeah.
redact everything so they have no idea.
I would take pride in my redactions. They would call me the redactor.
The redactor.
And I would have my own little office at the end of the hall.
Would you have like black pens that just shot out of your sleeves?
Dude, they would be like, there'd be a couple of chiefs down there, and they'd be like, I don't know what we're gonna do, Jim. I don't know, Paul. This one's pretty bad. Almost every other word it indicts us. You don't think? No, we can't. But we must. Oh, Susan. Yes.
Susan's a cat. I don't.
Call. Damn you. Call the redactor. Yes, I would.
It'd like pop out of your wrists or something.
Redact. And just like get it. It would look like that cat typing.
Right.
My favorite GIF of all time.
Right.
I don't know why. I can look at that thing for hours, but isn't that weird? That's a mental deficiency on my part, I know.
I feel like it is.
But I absolutely love that stupid thing. It doesn't matter when I get it. It brightens my day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the redactor, because it would be so much fun. It would be like, I redact. Oh, man.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yes, moving on. So this is still a UFO.
What happened to your voice?
I have no idea. You have me laughing. This is still a UFO story.
UAP.
But it's about, in this case, though, it's about the Ufology World Congress. So, UFO, in this case.
What did we say we'd have to start calling them?
If it's UAP, I guess it's a U-apologist.
Yes, the U-apologist. That's right. I'm sorry.
Because, the letters are different.
I just said I'm sorry as a joke.
I got it.
Yes, the U-apologist.
All right, so this is a story about the Ufology World Congress that happened recently in Barcelona, Spain. And one of the main speakers at this World Congress
Kaku
was your friend and mine, Michio Kaku.
Yes, I watched it.
Did you?
Yes.
And he was very positive about the extraterrestrial topic.
Yes.
And
he even told us what to prepare for.
He even gave advice on how to behave if you were ever aboard an alien spaceship. He was like, for heaven's sakes, take something, bring it back, give us something to study.
He's that slimy bastard that's going to, when they come invade, you know how there's always like the turncoat, and all of a sudden, there's a room full of them, and the main gray aliens up there, and let's say they use the church, right?
Right.
They use this local church, and we're all in there, and there's grays at the door with their big ray guns and everything, and the one's up there behind the pulpit, and he's like, we know who it was that spray painted the penis on the side of our vehicles. And everybody's looking and they're like, no, we don't know. We know because one of you wanted to go far in the world. Mr. Kaku. And he would like totally come up there and have his head down. That's that guy.
Right.
And he always has been. For those of you who don't know, for those of you who haven't, become patrons, number one, shame, we all know your name. But you would know from going through the Haunted South archive and the Third Side archive that I have had a thing for Kaku for years. In fact, remember that wonderful moment from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, when Captain Kirk can be heard going, Khan! Ow. Anyway, that is that is what I've done before with Kaku. We just didn't have as sensitive of microphones, obviously.
Obviously. Well, at the time, over the years, he was the go-to guy for news stories whenever there was a UFO story.
He was the Nick Pope before Nick Pope.
He was the one that they would ask, and he would always be so vague about it. You'd have to read between the lines. He would never, say anything concrete, but he would allude to things. It was so frustrating. And apparently in this talk...
But he has sweet grandma hair.
You do. You call it grandma hair.
I love it because it's soft and it's luxurious. It looks like I just want to fall asleep in it. He has like that soft grandma hair, like that. Come here, grandma. Oh, it's just so nice.
Well, in this particular lecture, he was talking about the videos that we were just talking about and how amazing they were because you could see these objects that were flying between like Mach 5 and Mach 20, which is much faster than anything
Nobody
we could
knows
do.
what that is. Like,
No, they have no idea.
we can say Mach 1000.
Yeah, I know.
And unless you're a freaking fighter test pilot,
Right.
it sounds like, oh, I love when people tell you like they know, like it can get between Mach 5 and Mach 20, man. It's like, could it really?
I don't know what that is. That they could zigzag to a point that a human pilot would not be able to stand it. I mean, you could at least tell
I'd like
that
to
from
see
the
it,
video. And he said that maybe they are evidence of an advanced outer space civilization. And he even went on to say that we've reached a turning point now, that it used to be that believers had to prove that these objects were from an intelligent, life form in outer space. But he claims that now the burden of proof is on the government to prove that they're not.
Yeah, because we know there's nobody intelligent here.
And that the possibility that they are from outer space, that has to be put on the table. That has to be an option that you look at now. And for Kaku to say that, he's the go-to guy.
Right, absolutely.
But he also did say that because we don't have any physical proof, he says we don't have any physical proof. We think there's a warehouse somewhere with some physical proof.
We don't think it. We know it. I mean, they said it.
But he said that because of the inability for a pilot to be in these ships, that perhaps the pilots are robotic or cybernetic. I mean, it could very well be, even though it's alien, it could be some kind of robotic pilot.
No. I know.
Well, at any rate, his talk was really good, and the Congress had some other really good speakers. Of course, Nick Pope.
Yes.
Had to be there. You can't have a
Do you
UFO
think they even
Congress.
have to pay him?
Probably not. There was another speaker, Jan Harzan. He's a former IBM executive that was the executive director for MUFON. Mm-hmm. He was there. He spoke. But one of the most interesting speakers was, at the end, one of the final speakers, American author Alfred Weber. He is a self-described international lawyer who writes books about exopolitics, which is the politics between, Earthlings and aliens, for anyone that doesn't know what exopolitics are. And during his talk, he raised this really odd possibility that the extraterrestrials were coming to Earth to recruit human slave labor.
Well, yeah.
That is his possibility. And he says that there are some estimates that 60 million humans are enslaved in industrial facilities in the solar systems producing products used throughout the galaxy. That's one of the reasons for the abductions. And he said that some aliens, specifically the race known as Draco reptilians, which we've heard of, they're believed to come from the Orion constellation. They have a taste for human babies. They are very not good with us. And Weber, who said he previously worked for the Stanford Research Institute, he claims that he headed a project called the Extraterrestrial Communication Study, and it was established early in the Carter administration. And he claims that it was stopped in its tracks by the Pentagon in October of 1977. Now, here's the reason. This is what you're going to find is so interesting. He said that the project was about to expose the fact that the United States has had a secret treaties with certain extraterrestrial civilizations, the Orion Greys and the Draco reptilians, to be specific, going all the way back to FDR's time.
Right.
And you've always said that. And he said that our world is actually being overseen by a regional galactic government of like 7 or 8 different civilizations. And they were about to expose that fact with this project, and the Pentagon just nixed it completely.
Yeah.
And, that's always something that we talk about the FDR thing and the treaties and where he had that secret meeting. And so that's what his discussion was about. Those are the things that he was talking about. He also said, and you're going to find this really fascinating, that he had some good news, that he said that a famous Brazilian prophet named Zico Xavier made a prediction back in July 20th of 1969, which is the same day that he said that we allegedly landed on the moon.
Right.
That he said in 50 years from that day, if World War III had not broken out by then it would never happen. That was this guy's prediction.
Right.
I don't know how true that is. But that we would be rejoining the galactic community of nations. And so he feels like that's a good message. But he also claims his message was so crucial that he posted on his Facebook page that Hurricane Dorian, the recent hurricane, was a weather warfare event, and it was meant to interrupt or overshadow his talk at the conference about all those things that we just mentioned. And the whole reunification of Earth humanity with peaceful galactic communities. And a few hours later, the Barcelona media broke the news that 2 tornadoes had touched down in the city. Tornadoes very rarely happen in Barcelona. Like, it's a rarity. The first one 3 miles north of the hotel where he was speaking, and the second about 3 miles south. And they both touched down right before he was about to speak. Isn't that strange?
It's ironic.
It is.
It really
it's
is.
a coincidence. Now, I don't know how much truth there is in that, but it's weird that he was saying that about the hurricane, and then that other thing also happened. And he did have more controversial things to say than some
Lucky
of the
for
other
us, they don't have good aim.
Yeah, exactly. I guess maybe tornadoes are not, they haven't perfected the...
Somebody lost their job.
I guess so.
Why do you got
Need
that
more
damn?
target practice?
Why do you got that damn robot doing it, Kaku? That's something to think about. I mean, and it's scary. But we would be, behind most people, you would think. What interests me is going back to antiquity and looking at the things that we found that are, overwhelming proof, just as good as those videos that we've been visited, that we've been at a higher technological level in the past than we are now. And like I always talk about, I talk about in the 10,000 years ago, and people are just like, or 10,000 BC even. So roughly like 11,500 years ago or whatever, all this miraculous stuff they find, like Göbekli Tepe, that we always like to talk about with the T-shaped structures and the animal carvings, and it was purposely covered up. Well, because I live in this stuff, I have a little bit of news. It's not news like that because it's just now being uncovered, so to speak, legitimately. So they found something they call Harbisuvan Tepe.
Okay.
And there's another Tepe too. It's like Little Tepe. I don't know. It's not as important.
Right.
But it's still something. And this is not exactly like next door. It's in the same region.
Right.
And I hate when people call it such an ancient part of the world, I mean, they're still all the same. But yes, people had civilization there much longer ago. It was the cradle of civilization.
Right.
So this Harbisuvan Tepe, they've been uncovering it, and this is just happening now.
Okay.
You can go to your YouTube. It'll be hard to find. It will be really hard to find. In fact, the only thing that has been found that you can find on it, you have to Google Translate. There's nothing in English.
Wow.
So you have to really be a nerd on this.
So this is like a new discovery. Like they've just discovered it? They're just starting to
They
uncover
discovered it maybe a decade ago, but they have only really started going into it. You got to look at what they found at Göbekli Tepe, right? So then they're like, oh crap, let's go over here. So uncovering it, they've uncovered the same T-shaped structures. They've uncovered these like carvings that have the hands. It's the telltales from Göbekli, like the hands that come around the side of the T, and like the little beans and stuff. And there's this wonderful flaccid one that's just, I mean, this dude's raging. And this that was the one they kept showing. I was cracking up. But there was actually they kind of glossed over this, but there was some vandalism, and they broke some of these.
What?
Somebody broke some of the T-shaped structures. I'm like, what the hell?
That's horrible.
And they put them back together. But, Göbekli, that was only like 30% uncovered. Like, it's like there's so much more there that hasn't been uncovered. But
are they still working on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, dude, there is so much. And it's painstaking. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Because you have to go so slowly because you don't know what you're going to find.
Yeah. You can't let anything go past you. But so there's 3 known sites that have this same type of thing. And it should be the top story on national news because it's like, oh, hey, everything we told you about hunting and gathering was wrong because we have all this. And by the way, they, for some reason, covered it up. And, maybe they covered it up because they knew that maybe they had a good prophet that knew that, it was going to come open. But it's so strange. It's obviously a catalog. It's obviously some type of communication, something. It's just so well done. And it's so far above and beyond what they should have been able to do. And so that's very, very interesting to me. I love stuff like that. So it's just something I thought I'd throw in.
That's cool because maybe by the time we go visit, we'll be able to see both of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you could still go there. I'll tell you how important this one is. The video you can find on it has like a lot of guys in suits standing around looking down at like two guys digging.
Oh, yeah.
And,
That's pretty important.
It looked very Indiana Jones to me.
Right.
And I'm like, the Germans are already on their way. You got to watch out.
You know what? If you were an explorer, you would wear a suit.
Oh yeah. And I would totally hire a German.
Right.
I would be, you just act like a Nazi. I don't really like Nazis. We are so past that. Could you please stop? But I tried hiring that American guy to play it, and he just didn't have the same authenticity. And
right.
What did you pause between that word? I just liked it. I don't know. Authenticity. Sounds like a city. But yeah, I would have all that because Indiana Jones is the greatest thing ever made. So continue.
All right. So let's move on to this story about space. And this is about another interstellar object.
Oh, no.
Yes. So last week, the Minor Planet Center announced that astronomers
Wait a second.
What?
There's actually a place that people get paid to work at called the Minor Planet System Center.
Minor Planet Center.
Okay. Like minor, like MINOR.
Yes.
Like not a major planet.
Right. Like there's a center just for the little planets.
I'll be damned.
I guess. I don't know.
I don't think they like to be called little planets anymore.
No, minor planets.
Yes, okay.
Mm-hmm. So they announced that astronomers had tentatively discovered the second interstellar object on record. And now there's a picture of it on this article. Now it's still a fuzzy picture because the thing's still pretty far away. But an amateur astronomer, his name is
we broadcast live from the moon in 1969.
Gennady Borisov discovered the object, and they've just named it Comet C/2019 Q4. He discovered it on August 30th, and follow-up observations have revealed that the object has a hyperbolic orbit, meaning that it was traveling with enough velocity to escape the solar system's gravity, and implying that it did not originate in this solar system. It is interstellar. Now, what makes this one different from the last interstellar object is I believe they've already determined that this one is absolutely a comet. It has the comet tail. Because when you get things like this, you're going to get either comets or asteroids. You know, asteroids are more like large chunks of rock and metal, and comets are ice and rock, and they have the tail. So this one they believe is absolutely a comet. They're hoping to get better pictures of it once it gets closer and does the thing where it zooms around the sun and then, heads back out.
Right.
So
I hate to be that guy. But do you think there's any chance that because, Jimmy and the Minor Planet System Center last time was like, oh my God, this could be a spacecraft. I got to call Reuters. Do you think that once they fed Jimmy to a reptilian, that possibly they told the next guy, Jimmy 2, that he's like, my name's Frank, you're Jimmy 2.
Yes.
That maybe don't tell people that it could possibly be a spacecraft this time.
Right. Like perhaps just stick with the comet theory.
Yeah, definitely a comet.
Right. Well, they said that they don't know precisely how big this one is. It's bigger than the last one. But they don't know precisely how big because of the gases around it makes it fuzzy. Like they can't really see it.
To me too.
But its closest approach to the sun will happen around December 8th. So they're hoping to get some better pictures to be able to study it a little better.
Right.
Then, maybe we'll see the windows this time.
Yeah, I just drew it with the windows.
Did you? Oh, God, yeah. You did. How funny.
Yeah, totally just drew it with the windows.
That's funny. All right, so second interstellar object on its way. I guess in a couple months we'll know more information about it.
Isn't it kind of weird, though, because we have comets, like, often, and I guess we don't have them come from outside.
From outside of our solar system.
That's kind of scary.
It is.
So, I mean, if it's on the same trajectory, it might not have been here for 1 billion years.
That's true.
I mean, God knows what it could have on it.
It's just weird that things are starting to come from outside of the solar system now.
Yeah.
And we never used to hear about stuff like that. So.
And we never heard about any of that.
Wonder what's changed.
Everything. I just like that awesome guy who came by the booth. One of the awesome guys who came by the booth. We were talking about 2012, and I was like, I'm not so sure that we didn't die.
Right.
I mean, because Stacy and I did a countdown on the show all year. So every guest we had we would be like, all right, the one question you have to answer, because we ask everybody this, and it's not how did you get started.
Right.
We try to avoid that one. The first, we have to go, what do you think about the 2012 Mayan prophecy? So everybody, we thought it was interesting to get everybody's take on it. Some people bought into it. Some people just wanted to hogwash us. And, but things changed, like so much changed after 2012. It's just weird. I can tell you this much. For me personally, if 2012 started my dream, I want to stay in it.
Right.
Because pre-2012 is nowhere near as groovy as post-2012.
Right. I'm all good with post-2012.
Yeah. Stacy and I barely remember pre-2012 anyway. So that's a whole nother book.
All right, well, let's move on, and we're still going to stick with the space news. And this is about an awesome discovery where astronomers have, for the first time, discovered water in the atmosphere of a planet orbiting within the habitable zone of a distant star.
How can they tell there's water there? And no, let me ask you a question. There's a comet that's coming through our solar system right now, and they've got the Bigfoot camera on it. Okay, it's fuzzy,
right?
But somehow this distant planet orbiting a star, in the habitable zone, they can actually tell has water in the atmosphere.
In the atmosphere.
I mean,
there is a long scientific explanation about how they can
that's all you had to say.
Determine that. I'm not going to go through that entire, it's in the article.
Yeah.
So it does need to be studied more when we get better telescopes to determine if there's water not only in the atmosphere, but if there are other gases in the atmosphere that could support life. And if they don't know if there's water on the surface or anything like that. This is just strictly that they've detected that there is possibly water in the atmosphere. But that is a huge discovery.
Yeah.
And the lead scientist, Professor Giovanna Tinetti of the University College London, she described the discovery as mind-blowing because this is the first time that they've detected water on a planet that's also in a habitable zone. And, that's just means where the temperature is potentially compatible for the presence of life.
The Goldilocks zone.
Right. And now this particular planet they're saying is a super Earth, and that it's 111 light years away from Earth. So it's too far to send a probe. It's definitely too far out there. Exactly. So the only option
is iPhone 11.
The only option right now is to wait for the next generation of space telescopes to be launched to potentially look for the gases in the atmosphere. But they're super excited about it.
I'd be pointing the radio telescopes that way.
Right. Well, now other astronomers, however, are disputing this claim. They're saying that the planet is not a super Earth, that it's a mini Neptune. It's too big to be a super Earth, that it's a mini Neptune.
See, these are the people that we need to hoard up.
Right.
And while there are AR-15s left, never mind.
But they're claiming that there's no way that they could.
It's a mini Neptune. What kind of freaking argument is that? What does that matter?
I don't know, but if...
No, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I have a great announcement to make.
Right.
Okay, the announcement, you're going to be blown away. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we might be overshadowed by the UAP thing. I understand that. That's okay. I also know that the guy who brings tornadoes, comfortably close to him could also be overshadowing us.
Right.
But, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, outside of our Earth, we have found in a habitable zone, much like the habitable zone you're in right now, that a planet, Janet Schmanet, has water in the atmosphere. Now this could mean that it's just water in the atmosphere and there's little fish up in the sky. We don't know, but it was on Doctor Who once. Or it could mean that it's actually a planet much like ours with water and a sun, habitable. You know what that means? Life. It's what it means. It means life. Put a little sunlight on a little water and there's going to be a little tadpole. It's just going to happen. Little tadpoles are going to have whoopee and there's going to be more tadpoles. And then they're going to have whoopee with the tree bark and it's going to make some other animal. But that's just how it works. It's life. And it's a super Earth. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a super Earth. Yes, you in the front with the glasses with the tape.
Yes. Hi. I'm Ernie, and I am from another place. And anyway, I have to argue this point. It's not a super Earth. Good Lord, super Earth. That's just like on that Deep Space Nine episode. I am telling you right now, that is a mini Neptune if I've ever seen it. It's about, don't you think so, Rico?
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely a mini Neptune. What does that matter? Somebody literally is splitting a hair right now.
Well, the difference is that the mini Neptunes are larger, and the difference is if the planet was that large, it would be less likely that there's surface water because it would be less likely that the surface was rocky, I think is their argument. But if they don't know any more than she does if it's a super Earth or a mini Neptune. I mean, they're all just speculating. But they also claim that it's not, there's no way that this planet could support life because just the fact that they detected the atmosphere means that it's not thin enough, and all kinds of arguments. Like, the backlash on this was really harsh. I even saw an entire article dedicated to this particular argument where it said, we did not discover water and we don't even have the technology to do that. And it was just this whole article bashing what they supposedly have discovered. And I thought that was a pretty interesting thing to have a whole article about, like almost like they're protesting too much.
You never outgrew high school.
Right. And it's a huge argument.
It's the scientific Mean Girls.
Well, and it's funny.
We're going to put Giovanni in the burn book.
It does say that another issue with astronomers is they can't really agree what conditions are needed for habitability. The only thing we have to go on is Earth.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty damn good example.
Right, but that doesn't mean that we've talked about this before, that doesn't mean that there isn't some kind of life on other planets. Just because it's not human-like life doesn't mean,
we don't care about the other people.
We've seen life survive in all kinds of conditions that people couldn't survive in.
I think there's life on every single planet.
So,
I think there's life on every little rock. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really do. I think that it's everywhere. I think that there is absolutely life. Mm-hmm. And when we send one of these rovers somewhere, for the love of Pete, listen, go look at a rover somewhere and get the dimensions. Okay, right. Go outside to a parking lot and think about how slow that rover goes. Mm-hmm. You can land that thing in the middle of the Mojave, and all you're going to see is the Mojave for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's if it don't break or if they don't do experiments or anything like that. These planets are ginormous. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're only getting a small little pickle.
Right. It's like you said, if another planet landed a rover in the Mojave Desert, they would never know that we existed.
Yeah, they'd be like, nope, it's all desert.
Yep, it's just sand.
Yeah.
Nothing could live there.
Because people generalize, even scientists.
Exactly. Well, anyway, it's an interesting article. It's a huge argument among astronomers. I hope that eventually, when they get the new crop of telescopes, space telescopes, that she is vindicated with her atmosphere, water in the atmosphere.
I was the guy in school that was a great reader.
Right.
I was just a wonderful reader. They would ask me to read in class when it had to be read because a couple of reasons. I'd be sent to the office when someone else read because I would sit there and stare at them when they were like, and then Tommy, then like what else was it, Tommy? The N, the E. I don't know, and it would bother me. It's terrible of me. I'm not like that now.
Right.
Now I understand it. We all go at different speeds. That would be much like someone watching me do math. Okay, it's frustrating because I'm sitting there just like, I don't know where to start. Why are there letters? I don't understand why there's letters, and because I hate math. But I didn't get along with math people, and I'm glad because a person like me with my personality profile would end that. Like, you wouldn't be able to have me in that room. Maybe they need me because as soon as somebody started making stupid arguments,
right,
hypotheticals, I hate when I'm somewhere and somebody, good friend of mine one time called him one time at band camp statements.
Right.
Okay. He was trying to get through a presentation and he's like, could you please not ask me one time at band camp questions? And what he meant was, all these people had been in the same work-related place, okay? So they were learning more stuff about work. So they all had their own little stories
Right.
about every little store.
Right.
Everybody's had that new employee that came from Burger King, and they're working at McDonald's now, and they're like, well, we need a Burger King. We need a Burger King. You know, shut up. Go back to Burger King. But they would do these stupid hypotheticals. Like, you know, they'd be like, well, what if someday we were actually closing the store and number 7 got stuck on the counter? If that happened, what would we do, sir? And I watched him throughout the first day.
Right.
Like, I would watch him like go a little bit more deeper, like the hatred of people. This guy didn't last with this training thing, okay? Because he was too much like me.
Right.
And we would meet eyes and we would grin and stuff like that at stupid people. And not like stupid people. I feel bad for stupid people. I'm talking about willfully stupid people that sit there and have to. I don't know if they have to hear their own voice. I don't know if they just have to ask a question to feel smart.
Right.
But they literally bring up the dumbest crap when we could speed through. I'm an expediting type person.
Right.
You
just
know
wanna
this.
Get through it. Yeah.
Like if I decide, mommy, daddy time, you're like, what do you want to do? And you look over, I'm naked. You know? I mean, that's just how it is. You're like, oh. And
let me catch up. Hold on.
Yeah. So that's just, if I decide I want to buy a car, guess what I do? I go buy the first one that I like. If I'm looking at houses, it's normally the first one I go to. I mean, I'm just that person. I know that it's going to be right. I'm there. It's what it needs to be. Not everybody's like that. I get that. But man, questions like that, dudes, and the things, they're hypothetical statements they're bringing up, when it's all hypothetical to start with,
right?
I don't know. They shouldn't be bashing her is what I'm saying.
No, I agree. You know, you were talking about in school getting frustrated, and I took advanced math classes when I was in school, and I took calculus in my senior year in high school, and that was about as far as I could go in math without getting a little bit frustrated with it. But I had this student that I went to school with all through high school, and one of the smartest people I have ever seen, and he was this Indian boy. His name was Sudip.
Yeah.
He had a little brother named Joydip. It's the funniest thing. But super smart.
Right. They normally are.
In all those advanced classes, and he was in my calculus class. And so when you're in those advanced math classes, you have to do proofs where you have to prove things and stuff like that. And the teacher would get so frustrated because he would put like a theory on the board or something like that. And Sudip would raise his hand and say, well, why is it like that? And sometimes there isn't a why. Sometimes things just are, you know, like 1 + 2 = 3 just because it does, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't remember what the exact question was, but one day he just kept saying, but why? And I thought the teacher was going to throw him out of the classroom because it was like, because it just is.
So I remember I got kicked out of preschool, and my preschool person said, don't ever bring him back here. This is the truth, okay? Kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher quit teaching. My first grade teacher quit teaching. My second grade teacher quit teaching. My French teacher quit teaching.
I feel like there's a pattern.
Hold
here.
on a second. My fourth grade teacher quit teaching. And in sixth grade, they all said that. And this is 100. We could call my mom, put her on the phone right now.
And I've heard the stories.
This is all true. Okay. And they all claimed it was for me. Now, the reason was not because I was spitting on them or doing anything, except my French teacher. I did put laxatives in her coffee and stuff like that. But she was a terrible person. The reason was I would get mad at other students for stuff like, but why, Mrs. Johnson? But why? And just keep that incessant, like, I was never a kid. Does that make sense? Like,
yes.
I never had that. I was always that sarcastic person that I am now. And I'm nice, and I'm your friend to death.
Right.
And which is also a bad thing I've come to find out in adult life, you know, like the fact that I'll jump over a table if somebody says something to a friend of mine and strangle them. But, you know, I don't know. I just had this problem with people that were just, you know, doing it to do it. That's always bothered me because, you know, they're not really interested in the answer.
Right.
It's just, I've never understood it, I guess.
No, me neither. All right, so let's go on to this next story.
Sounds cool.
that is about some strange life forms that have been found deep in a mine that point to a vast underground Galapagos.
Dude, I love strange life forms in a mine.
Well, it's interesting because we were just talking about, life on other planets and what kind of life that would be. And this just proves that there are things that can live in places that we could not live.
Right.
So this is from Canada's Kidd Mine. It's a zinc and copper mine. It's about 350 miles northwest of Toronto, and it's the deepest spot ever explored on land and the reservoir of the oldest known water. And it says 7,900 feet below the surface in perpetual darkness and in waters that have remained undisturbed for up to 2 billion years.
Oh my God.
The mine is teeming with life.
Oh my God.
And of course, scientists doubted that anything could live under such extreme conditions. But back in July, a team led by the University of Toronto geologist Barbara Lawler reported that the mine's dark, deep water harbors a population of remarkable little microbes that can live without oxygen and without sunlight.
Right,
just in these extreme conditions. And it says in this article that the single-celled organisms, they don't need oxygen because they breathe sulfur compounds.
Oh my God.
They don't need sunlight. Instead, they live off chemicals in the surrounding rocks. And in particular, pyrite, like fool's gold. They somehow get nutrients out of this rock and they eat that fool's gold to survive. And it's just she says, very exciting. It's like being a kid again. And they believe that there's so much life at the bottom that they are calling it an underground Galapagos.
That is so weird.
Isn't it crazy?
I mean, it's awesome.
Yes.
But wow. I would love to see, what some of the stuff they end up finding.
Yeah, well, I believe all of their work kind of builds off of a 2018 report by the Deep Carbon Observatory scientists who tried to map the total extent of Earth's deep biosphere. And I think we talked about that back last year when that story sort of came out, where we've talked about different sort of weird things that they found in the Earth that obviously can live in situations where you wouldn't think.
Right. I mean, that's
live.
one of your favorite things to talk about.
Yeah.
Life finds a way.
And it says that in this particular article, it says in the eye-opening report that a geobiologist at the Swiss Technical University in Zurich estimated that then there's this astronomical number that's done in scientific notation, that many cells live in the deep earth, and it says that's 500,000 trillion cells, and collectively they weigh 300 times as much as all living people combined.
Wow, man.
There's so much life teeming down in that hidden ecosystem. And they found different types of cells and different ways they can live, and it says even one species can live at temperatures at 250 degrees Fahrenheit.
And that shouldn't even be possible.
No, because that's well above the boiling point of water.
Right.
And you would think that anything that was cellular would just disintegrate in that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
So it's very crazy. And of course, this is the Kidd Mine, and they are admitting that they don't really understand the limits to life and what can be out there.
Right.
So very fascinating.
It is. That's really cool. I can't wait to see what else comes from that,
Oh, yeah. All right, so let's move on and get away from the sciencey stuff and do something scary.
I like scary.
Supernatural.
I like super scary natural.
So this is funny, but this is a story about the world's largest cemetery in Iraq. And I think we just looked at a picture of that the other day.
I was looking at a picture of it.
Yeah, you were like, look at this picture of this cemetery. And I was like, that's funny. I have a story about that. So this is a story about the world's largest cemetery. It's called Wadi Us Salam, or the Valley of Peace.
Right.
And UNESCO has placed the cemetery on its tentative list of World Heritage Sites, and they claim that the Valley of Peace is the only graveyard in the world where the burial process has been continuous for more than 1,400 years.
Wow.
And it is so coveted, people just want to be buried there because
they're dying to get in.
They are. It's right next to a temple, a very sacred temple. And it's funny because the way that they describe how big it is, it's one of your measurements that you like so much. It takes up about 13% of the city, the sacred city that it's in, and they claim that's equivalent to 900 rugby fields.
Oh, of course.
How big is that?
Yeah, because we know all about rugby.
Exactly. But supposedly there are the remains of 5 million Muslims in this cemetery.
Wow.
It is huge. And this particular article is about the grave diggers that work there, because the men, they just dig the graves by hand in this cemetery. And so this whole article is about these grave diggers and things that have happened to them and how high the turnover is for that particular job.
Yeah, digging in hot sand, I'm sure.
Of all of the supernatural things that happen. So there's a couple stories. One of them, this man says one day a shadow sneaked up behind him and hit his head violently, leaving him badly injured. He couldn't even walk straight. And he felt like he was just being oppressed by the spirit, like that the spirit was just with him. And he tried shamanic healing sessions. His family spent all their money trying to heal him from this supernatural, oppression that he was having. They live in poverty now. His wife left him. His whole life has been destroyed because of this supernatural thing that happened at this job. It is very sad. And he still has not recovered from this thing that happened to him. And they talk about other grave diggers who claim that one time one was bending down and over this dead woman, putting her in the grave, and that she smacked him in the face. Like her dead corpse moved and smacked him in the face. And he had nightmares about it for months and months. Now he's better now. He did also have to go to therapy and spend a lot of money on treatment to get over that particular incident, because that's all he said, that was all he could see when he closed his eyes. But after he got better, he just had to go back and work at the cemetery again, because that's what his family did. His dad did it, his grandfather did it, he does it. That's their, the job sort of gets passed down through the generations. So it's a really interesting article. There's a lot of different stories from different people that work there, and how crazy and haunted it is, and how much legend and lore is around it. And just the pictures are amazing because of how massive.
Looks like a city.
How massive this graveyard is. It's insane. But, that's where people want to be buried because of their, religious and sacred beliefs.
Right.
So it's very crazy, very interesting story. I can't imagine having to work somewhere that was so frightening.
Yeah, 1,400 years of dead people.
Yeah, that's insane.
I mean, it's cool though. I mean, I like to, I like to feel it. I like to walk through it.
I couldn't imagine. It has to be nerve-wracking, even for people that are used to being in cemeteries. One that large, that's that old. Yeah. I mean, we get in cemeteries, we're like, look how old these graves are from the 1700s, and
right.
That's so much older than that.
Oh yeah, man, it's nuts. I mean, Iraq in general, I mean, the stuff that's under that sand is remarkable. I would love just to.
Oh yeah, the amount of supernatural things that
man,
are in that area.
Just powerful objects, I mean, unbelievable wealth of history. And
yes.
It's a shame that the world is the way it is, because I would love for us all to just get along and be able to dig.
Right.
It'd be cool.
Discover
if
the stuff.
I want to create a peace thing amongst the world, and just be like, you know what, I'm running on peace among all people, just so we can dig and find alien crap. How about it?
Peace and archaeology.
Yeah,
that's you. I want peace and archaeology.
I mean, who would turn that down? Be like, look, let's find out, how long are we here, guys? How long are we here? 60 years, 70 years? How many years are we here that we can actually do this? 30 that we can do it before our back gives out? Let's forget the war. So what? You win, and guess what happens? The next generation's going to fight again, and so screw it. Why don't we just all dig together, find out the secrets they don't want to tell us, because they're down there, and they know if we're fighting, they're not going to do it. You know what they're going to do? They're going to send a special crack team in and find this stuff during a war, and
when nobody else is paying attention.
And just like all the stories that seeped out when we invaded Iraq, and Afghanistan, anytime we go somewhere, well, I mean, the Germans did it. They took all the art and the magic weapons, and I think that just happens, I think that just happens. And I don't know. I know that it's a shame in many ways, but there's a lot of places in the world that I would just love to go see and admire, and feel the energy of these places. But the shape we're all in, it's almost impossible to go enjoy these places.
It is. I agree. I've always been curious about archaeological digs in countries like that where it's a lot of sand. It must be really, really difficult because it's not, it shifts all the time.
Yeah.
It has to be dangerous and difficult. I mean, what a great place to hide things that you didn't want people to find.
Well, yeah, they hide themselves. I mean, things get, the way the sand blows around, it changes the topography of the region, constantly.
That's true.
So it's so intriguing to me. Deserts intrigue me, and I think that it's just more of a vision quest thing for me. But I just desire having my toes in the hot sand and just looking around and seeing nothing. I want to look around in every direction and see nothing but the most beautiful skies and this just hot ass desert, and be able to lay under the stars and see the stars, really see the stars.
Right.
I'm most drawn to the water, and I want to be on the water, but it's kind of similar. I know, as stupid as that sounds, but if you're in the middle of the ocean, it's kind of the same thing.
Right, it's gonna be dark.
I think my theme is get me away from people.
Right, and light, artificial light.
Yeah, artificial light, people. I will be fine.
All right, well, sort of talking about dead bodies still.
Yay.
This isn't about graveyards. This is about a study that they did with dead bodies where they claim that dead bodies keep moving for more than a year after death.
Oh.
Isn't that weird?
Well, not really, because of the muscles and all this stuff.
Well, it says
I hope I flip people off.
that researchers
I don't know what's wrong with his finger, sir.
researchers at an
His hand just made the shocker.
Australia-based decomposition research facility. Could you imagine your job being that you just have to go in and watch bodies decompose? That's what they do.
I do that already.
It's locally known as the
They're still alive, but
body farm,
right,
which is a little bit disrespectful, but it's called
not very correct either. I mean,
no.
You would think that they're like little hands coming out of the soil.
Right, they're not growing bodies,
Right.
Right. So they use time-lapse cameras to film decomposing corpses for 17 months. And the place is called the Australian Facility for Taphonomic Experimental Research, or AFTER. Which I thought was clever because it's dead bodies.
No, that's a good one.
After.
That's a good one. Kudos.
They've been taking overhead images of a corpse every 30 minutes during daylight hours for 17 months. That's just people's jobs. Every 30 minutes they get up, click, and then.
So if you actually want me to come back to life and walk the earth, if you put a camera on me when I'm freaking dead, so help me God. I will find a way to come back and kill everyone.
Yeah, I believe it.
I cannot stand if I'm not on, if I'm not in front of a camera, if I'm not in front of the audience, I don't want to be looked at.
No, I understand. I believe a lot of spirits feel that way.
Yeah.
Well, they claimed that what they found with the arms were significantly moving, so that arms that started off down beside the corpse after 17 months would end up like to the side, like out the side of the body. Like they expected there to be some movement in the early stages of decomposition, but they were really surprised that it continued for the entire duration of the filming. And why this is so significant is for, bodies that they find that have been out, people that have been murdered or whatever, and they've been out in the elements, that changes the whole investigation. Like maybe the body wasn't in that position.
Right. Like
when
she
it
wasn't
died.
really pointing at that tree.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Like maybe the arms weren't beside her head.
Right.
Maybe it decomposed and moved that way. So it really sheds a lot of light on those investigations and how you have to really take that into consideration. I just thought this was so interesting because I didn't realize that was something people did. Like that they just photographed corpses as they decomposed.
No, I didn't either, but I did realize about bodies moving though, because
Did you think they moved that much though?
Well, yeah. I mean, when they used to sit up with the dead, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the corpses would move even then. That soon.
Well, true.
I mean,
Oh, that would be so freaky.
I think you would be used to it, especially
I suppose.
in Appalachia here. It's it's just a thing. I mean, it's just not anymore,
Right.
but it was just a thing. And I think in a way, it's kind of nice to be able to say goodbye to at least to the vessel, because at a funeral you're so rushed. I know at the last funeral I was at, I really wanted some privacy to be able to talk. And I had no privacy. I had like people staring at me with weird smiles. Like I don't know why.
Well, because everybody's in the same room.
I guess they're in shock or whatever, but they're just smiling, like listening to what I'm saying. And I want to say private things,
Right.
like I get to later at a grave, but it's not as personal.
Right. Right. It's better when you can look.
It's almost more closure for me. I have a hard enough time in a funeral home as it is, but I hate for people to hover.
Right. Right.
And it's just, I don't know. I think if it was a natural thing, Stace, I think that anything that people do from birth, we might not understand it, but it just becomes natural. It's like working with cadavers. It's just your job.
I suppose.
People do it because it's just your job. I think you just become desensitized.
I'm sure. It's not something I think I could do.
Yeah, no, me either.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
I can't do it because of the people that are going to be standing there with their bodies.
Right.
I mean, there's a different reason. I know when we were in the funeral home and they took us on the tour. It took me forever to get over that. I could still see that dude laying on that freaking table. And because it's just not something I want to be associated with. I'm not into that kind of stuff.
No, me either.
That's the same kind of reason you and I like psychological thrillers and old school horror, opposed to slasher stuff.
Exactly.
But even though people voted for slasher on our poll.
I saw that.
Yeah. Paranormal Sideshow Facebook. I put up a little poll and
wanted to know what kind of movies people liked during the Halloween season.
It was a good battle, but
it was really close there for a while, but I think Slasher won out.
Slasher won out.
More younger people.
I blame millennials.
All right. Well, let's move on to this next story, and it's about another crying Virgin Mary icon.
Yes. That's not happening every 2 weeks. That's not freaky at all.
This one's from Chicago, and it was at the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church. It's on Chicago's northwest side. Now, this church is the second oldest Greek Orthodox church in the country and the oldest one in the Midwest at more than 100 years old. And it's been at its current location since the 60s. And the church was facing foreclosure due to bankruptcy. And they have done fundraisers and they've tried to raise the money and they tried to get a loan with the bank and they just couldn't come up with the money to keep the church. And even some of the people that went to church there, they would come up to the preacher there, the father, and they would say, we'll mortgage our homes, we'll do it. And he was like, no, we're trying to raise the money, we're trying to keep it. It's a very expensive place to be in Chicago, and they've just been there for so long. And right before, like one of the last services that they were having before they went to court to see about the foreclosure, the Virgin Mary icon started weeping, and people were just... They didn't know how to take that. They didn't know if it was a message that, maybe the church was going to be saved or maybe she was upset but it did bring a lot of people to the church. And the father that is over that church, his name is Nick Jonas. And he was on there.
Good that he found work.
He was on there saying that there's something she's trying to tell us. So we're just going to try and listen to what she has to say. And you could see the oil-like substance streaming from her eyes, like it remained, even though it wasn't tearing continuously, and I do believe it's being investigated. But once the bankruptcy court came around, the judge did approve the sale of the church for $2.5 million to Universal Life Church. So Holy Trinity is going to have to move. They're going to have to relocate. After they've been there for all that time, they have 75 days to relocate, and the Universal Life Church will now move into that building. So...
This is just me.
Very strange.
But if Mary is weeping in a church for the church having to go away, I don't want to be the one that moves in.
Yeah, me either. I don't think I want to be the one that buys it.
You know, I don't want to spite Mary and go in there and just, deal with that kind of stuff.
Right. But they tried really hard to keep it, and they just couldn't. So, but hopefully, they find a new home. Hopefully it all ends up working out for the best. I just thought it was really interesting that we had this other crying Virgin Mary icon with the oily like substance, and that also needs to be investigated. Of course, we don't hear about these.
A lot of times, something like that would come off seeming like a hoax.
Right.
Not that, just to try to save the church, not that Chicago has any known hoaxes, but it's just one of those things that
it would seem like that, except it didn't happen until like the very last, like the very end. It wasn't like they did it a month out to give them time to bring people in and get money. It was like right at the end. I would almost have taken that as a sign that was going to be, they were going to have to move. So, but if they can't afford to keep up the building, then, maybe they should find a smaller place.
A smaller congregation. And,
yeah.
That's, I wonder, just, I don't know.
The whole thing's strange. And the thing about those is it takes them so long to investigate them, and you don't always hear about the results of whether it was a miracle or not, or
there's miracle investigators. That's a cool job.
Well, apparently they're really busy right now.
Yeah.
So maybe they just have their hands full. All right, so let's move on. I wanted to talk about this really awesome project that is online that you can go look at, and it's about the Dyatlov Pass. And it's called Dyatlov Group's Journal, The Last Page. And it's this online project that retraces the hiker's steps. And it's this presentation, and I looked at it in part. It's really awesome. It goes through every single day of the journey that these hikers went through. There are pictures that I've never seen before of the hikers. There's pages from their journals, and it's just presented in this really nice interactive way. You can click on the pictures and make them bigger. You can click on the journal pages and read them in their own handwriting. And there's interviews with people, and I loved it because at the beginning there's this woman, and she's driving in her car, and she's talking about the incident, the Dyatlov Pass incident, and how strange it was that on that last night, they all have all these explanations of what happened, but on that last night, these hikers, these really experienced hikers, put their tents down in a location that was not smart for them to camp in. And she said that for her, that was always the most mysterious thing. Like, there would be no reason for them to want to camp in that spot. Like, it was open to the elements, and they were all so experienced that they should have known better. And for her, that was one of the more mysterious things.
Just because they were bewildered.
Right.
The whole thing seemed like at points they were very bewildered, just the way they found them and the elements and all the things that they did find with it. Actually, there was an episode that we missed of Expedition Unknown where Josh investigates the Dyatlov Pass incident. So I'm going to have to go back and watch that one, because it seems that's just really, we always loved it, but it's really gained a lot of stories here the last couple of years.
It really has. And I really liked this particular project because it was different, and it does show pictures of some of the people that they found, like the actual photos of them. It doesn't for all of them, but it shows you a map of where they were all laying, and you can click on it and it tells you what happened to them and what state they were found. And all of them say that the death was unnatural. But it doesn't give a reason. It does have interviews with people with different theories. And then at the very end, it asks you to pick what you think. If you think it was an avalanche, an ice block, a hurricane, or other. Those are the choices it gives you. And if you click other, then you can type in on this journal page, you type in what you think it was, and then you can share that.
So
online.
You can put UFOs.
Right. You can put that, and then you can share it that you thought that was what the thing was. But again, it's very well done, and it's definitely worth a look. It doesn't take very long to click through the presentation. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Such a mystery still.
I know. And I don't care how much they investigated. It's not going to be solved because
not going to be able to figure anything out.
They're not going to look at any kind of weird explanation.
Right. When you don't enter that in as something that it could be, then you're really pigeonholing yourself.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about a close encounter in Santa Fe.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
So these two guys named Josh Brinkley and Daniel Lucero went hunting for elk over Labor Day weekend, and they were on this mountain called Pot Mountain.
Oh, were they?
Yes, that's what it's also known as. It has a Spanish name, but it's also known as Pot Mountain. I thought that was a great name.
El Cannabiso.
They're bow hunters, and they were, hunting for elk.
Oh, I thought they were hunting for bows.
Yes, they're bow hunters. They're like, we need a bow. So, so as they were waiting and trying to find some elk.
Would you really want to hunt for elk with a bow?
I mean, I don't know.
That's kind of pushing
I'm not
it.
a hunter,
That's
so.
like hunting for moose with a bow. I know they have these like high, compound bows and all this stuff, but I always picture like, a Native American bow. I just don't know if I'd want to do it. Like the elk, looks down, bites the arrow out of it, and comes out. Yeah,
gives you like evil eye.
Yeah.
So on opening day of the season, the two guys, they set up along tree lines surrounding a field, and they each took a different side, and they were waiting. And after like 3 hours, there was no elk. So Josh Brinkley, he got restless, and it was only about 9:30 in the morning. So he took off walking, and he was going through the woods. He was kind of looking to hopefully flush some elk out into the field so his buddy could shoot them. And when he reached the top of the mountain, he said that he walked to the edge. There's like a caldera up there. It's like this wide bowl left behind by a collapsed volcano.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the topography of it. And he said he walked to the edge. He said he saw two figures a short distance away. And at first he thought they were fellow hunters. But he said they were too tall and their heads were too big. And they were standing side by side and they were staring right at him. So he started walking towards them across this brushy field, and he estimated it about 35, 40 yards, not a terrible distance away. And he said he claims that as a bow hunter, he's pretty adept at, judging distance because you have to when you're shooting a bow. So he figured he would just go talk to them, see if they had seen any elk, if they were hunters. And he looked down to get around this bush that was in his path so he didn't trip. And when he looked back up, they were gone. He said they were just gone. And so he thought about it, and he said it was just two tall figures. They were halfway concealed by brush. And the shape that where their heads were, it looked like they had huge hoods on. And it looked like two ribbons coming off either side to a point at the top and the bottom. And he said the torsos were kind of black, and he couldn't really see a lot of details, but it looked like clothes. And in the middle of where their faces should be, it was just oval. It was just gray. Like, it was very odd. And he tried to make sketches of what he saw, just so he could remember. So the next day, he had told his friend about what he saw, but his friend didn't necessarily believe him. But the next day, they headed out early in the morning to hunt again because they still hadn't seen any elk. And they hunted, they hiked all around the area, still no elk. So they got back to their Jeep, and they decided to drive around the mountain to see if there were other hunters that maybe were scaring off the elk, or maybe people riding off-road vehicles. And as they drove, they started to notice that there weren't any signs of wildlife at all. And after about 10 minutes of driving, they claimed that they saw this strange structure about a quarter of a mile away that appeared to be like a movie base camp or a film set for like an alien ship scene, like something very large. It was this, they claim it was this big tent structure, kind of like a circus tent,
Right.
like 50 or 60 feet tall. And coming off the left of it was this long building, almost like you would build for an archery lane for target practice. Sort of like, like you remember in E.T. when they had the big tent and then they had like the tube coming off of it? That's what I thought of when he was claiming that I had seen this, that it was more like a clean area or something like that.
Right.
And he said it was, the tube part was a third of the height, but it was really long. And they drove down a hill and lost sight of the structure for a few seconds. And then when they topped the hill, the whole thing was just gone.
Oh my God.
Just like the people.
I bet
that
it wasn't gone. I bet it was invisible.
Just invisible. So then when they finally reached a place where they could get some cell phone service, they called a few friends and told them what they had seen, and they thought about calling the Air Force. Like, they had a conversation where they thought about calling the Air Force. But one friend gave them the number for a man named Peter Davenport, who is the executive director of the National UFO Reporting Center in Washington State. So they did call him and, you know, at least give their testimony of what they saw. And Josh Brinkley said, you know, people probably think we're insane, but they know what they saw. And, you know, his friend was like, you know, they didn't really believe in UFOs before last week, but now they do believe that there is something weird out there because of this weird stuff that they saw that just happened to disappear.
That is so
Isn't it strange?
awesome of a story. It's very bizarre.
It's such a bizarre story. And what I thought was really relevant about it, besides the fact that I thought the tent thing with the tube did sound like more of a clean area,
Right,
you know, testing kind of thing, is the two figures he saw, because it looked like they had hoods on with gray faces, could have been some kind of radioactive suit that you would wear in such a structure.
Yeah, no,
You know what I mean? Like some kind of protective gear.
it could be, or it could be high-level aliens.
It could be.
Like some kind of, you know, you think of E.T., I think of Harry Potter. So I'm thinking about in the field, and they're getting ready to have the Quidditch World Cup, and you know, so they're like, dang it, there's muggles.
They're putting up the shields. Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting too that they said that the wildlife there was no wildlife, and there's no elk, and they go there to elk hunt, but there wasn't any.
Very creepy about the hoods and the robes. Like if you imagine, like, you know, there's tall grays and short grays. If you imagine like the tall gray actually wearing ceremonial robes, I don't know, I think that would creep me out way more than just the naked grays.
Right.
It's, I mean, just the whole robes thing, you're kind of pointing it to, okay, these guys are upper echelon.
Right. They might be religious. They might do sacrificial things. We don't know.
Yeah. Especially after your whole slave thing you told me about.
Yeah, the other
All I
author.
can picture now is freaking, you know, humans out there working on Satellite 5.
Right,
It's just-
that you get abducted and taken away to be a slave. That's horrible.
Yeah.
I bet it happens, though. People go missing all the time.
They do all the time.
all the
So
time.
they take them out of the national parks, put them in slaves.
Make them work. Oh, all right, so let's move on to this next story about Roger Moore's daughter, who claims that her dad visits her from beyond the grave.
Wow.
So,
Kind of shaking her up. Not stir, but
yes, shaken, not stirred.
Yes.
Her name's Deborah. She's 55. She says she often gets signs that her father, Sir Roger, who died back in 2017, is still around. And she claims, and of course we know Roger Moore played James
probably
Bond.
because he heard what they're going to do with the James
007.
Bond movies.
But she claims that some really weird things happened. Like on a recent occasion, she got up early one morning and she was outside on the street, and this little Japanese man came running up to her with his mobile phone, and he started pointing at it going, MI5, James Bond. And she said, "Are you looking for the MI5 building?" And he went, yeah, James Bond, 007. So she told him where it was, and she thought of how weird that was because of all the people that he could have come up to and asked.
Yeah, right.
You know, he came up to her and used the James Bond reference.
Right.
So she thought that was interesting. And then she said she was in France for the christening of her brother's children, and she felt that her father was nearby for that special occasion. And she said she was walking along the beach, and there was this big Russian boat, and when it moved, the colors changed, and the side of it said 007.
Oh, that's weird.
Which was weird. And then a friend of hers that she was with, when her first day that she went back to work, she lives in Sweden, she said that she went to her office and the only picture in the entire office was of her father.
Wow.
And her friend felt that she needed to call and tell her that. And so she feels like that her dad is around because of all these signs that she's seeing that point to him
Right.
and what he did. And I just thought that was an amazing story because a lot of times there are signs like that for people that with their loved ones that have passed, and they just don't notice them. Like,
Yeah.
They just don't take the time.
Yeah, they don't notice them. They don't know to notice them, I think.
I think. Yeah.
I think it's the education. And a lot of times, if you're Hollywood type, you're going to be more on the metaphysical side of things.
Right.
That's just how they're raised, really, to believe more in that stuff. And I think it's because they see some fantastical things.
That's true. That's true.
Our friends from LA are more open than anybody I know to a wide array of, metaphysical and paranormal. And most of the celebrities that they know as well are into the same kind of stuff, you know?
Right.
We've talked so many times about like the lovely Lady Gaga who, you know, is very open, if not completely one step away from having a ghost hunting show. You know, then you seen like the Rob Lowe and his kids, you know, they did it. I think it's just the culture of that area that really opens that up. I think Hollywood is ever so magical, and you know, people are really into to this day are really into seances and psychic readings and you know, metaphysical healing and all this stuff, which so am I. I'm really a believer in the healing a lot more than I used to be, just because of people that have come up to me and they just know where I'm hurting, and we just talked about that, and they do, you know, one session, not even a session, but you know, in 30 seconds can relieve or alleviate some kind of the pain. If you grow up with that, I bet that it's just ingrained in you and you're going to notice the signs.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, and you know, you talk about people in Hollywood, and I'm sure that has something to do with the fact that, you know, when you're so consumed with your day-to-day struggle, it's hard to take the time to believe in more metaphysical,
I don't even
spiritual
fault
things.
them for a lot of the cuckoo bat crazy stuff that they say, because I know they live in a bubble. Just from having friends out there that totally live in a bubble. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No,
we all have bubbles, and you know, a lot of times you'll have work romances or things like that because you're around those people more than you're around your family during your conscious hours. And you know, it's you're in a bubble, like WWE. I'll use that for example.
Okay.
They work tireless. I mean, they work so much. It's not just like Monday Night Raw and Tuesday night. They're on the road all the time together. They live just together all the time. And so every little drama that's happening in that group is the biggest thing in the world to them.
Right.
And it's like that at anybody's job. Like you work at a Walmart. Everything that happens in that Walmart is your world. Like, you know, Cindy, the cashier is on meth, and you know, somebody else is doing this, and that's what you talk about when you're home. That's what you talk about all the time. It's your own little bubble. That's something that we chose to escape because we realized years ago that we were in a bubble. And Stacy and I, although I have the Bruce Wayne job, everybody's always like, how do you do all this other stuff? I do it because if I didn't do it, I couldn't survive because I could not be part of this drama. My district that I run has zero drama. And the way this works is this just happened this past week twice. I've had people text me and they'll tell me something that their manager did.
Right.
And so I asked them what their sales were the day before. I'll ask them what their top 5 customers are, you know, and they can't answer usually on the top 5, which they should always know that.
Right.
And I'm like, do you think maybe you should be more concerned with that?
Right.
You know, and I do, and I always take up for that person. But the reason is, you know, and I do investigate too, but I just want to make a point. I block everybody from work on my Facebook. And it's not because of being a prick or anything like that. It's because I don't want to live in a bubble. I want to be universally conscious and look at all sides. And that all came from you. You know, I completely was educated to that from you, and from you, the way you live, the way you don't just preach it, but you actually live it. You know, and it's been so much more peaceful for me. You know, Stacy can attest. Somebody pulls out in front of me, I don't go off now. You know, she does. It's like I went too far because Stacy will be like, "What are you doing?" You know, and I'm like, chill. I mean, there's moments I'm not, but for the most part, if you compared me now to 10 years ago,
right,
I would say I'm chill Billy.
Yes, I would agree with that. So I thought, in light of this story, that I would talk about a few ways that sometimes our loved ones that have crossed over still show us that they are around. You know,
Awesome.
that they can contact you. And some of these things, you might not notice right away. Like in the article, she was noticing signs, and a lot of people would just put that down as coincidence. They wouldn't take that to mean, that it was a sign that your loved one was still around. So one of the ways that, you can still tell is by phantom smells, scents.
Right.
And we get this on Paranormal Investigations a lot. Tobacco, maybe perfume or cologne, stuff like that. Stuff that you would associate with, like, for me, if I smelled like pipe tobacco, I would think of my grandfather.
Right.
That kind of thing. Like you were talking about your grandfather with the snuff and stuff. I'm sure that would trigger that memory. Sometimes
I think his hair cream, I believe, would trigger, and my other granddaddy would be the tobacco and like certain kind of muscle creams, and the like I told you, my great grandmother was the Bengay,
right?
Because she smelled like Bengay.
My grandmother.
Oh, Absorbine Jr. I'm sorry, not Bengay. It was Absorbine Jr.
There you go. My grandmother always smelled like Ginate, because she used to wear it every day, and we used to buy it for her all the time. That was her favorite, like body splash cologne stuff. So she always smelled like that. So another way that our loved ones that passed, contact us is sometimes they appear in our dreams. You think you're dreaming about them, but it seems very real.
Right.
And that happens quite often. You could be standing around one day and just all of a sudden have a thought of them. Out of the blue, like, and sometimes people say, I haven't thought about that in years.
Right.
Sometimes that's not just you thinking of it. Sometimes that's a little nudge.
I think that's always a nudge.
Always a nudge.
And it's not just with lost loved ones. It's anything. So many times I think about somebody that I haven't thought of in a long time, and they call me.
Right.
Now, not within 2 minutes.
Right.
But if you haven't talked to them in 5 years and they call the next day, that's weird. That's weird. And a lot of times they had the same thought.
Right.
And, that's kind of strange. Had that happen today. I had a guy apply for a job in one of my stores, and I was walking out, and he said my name, and I shook his hand and everything. Was just thinking about this guy yesterday.
Oh.
And, there he was. So I think these things happen all the time.
Another one is, like in the article, different signs, like meaningful numbers, or just, maybe you'll see their name, or, like things that happened to Roger Moore's daughter. People would mention him around her, things like that. Any kind of synchronicities that come up. We always say we don't really believe in coincidence. So, anything that would come up that would remind you of your loved one, might be a sign. And I know one that you can read about a lot online. People call it pennies from heaven.
Yep.
When you find pennies, coins laying around, and sometimes they have very specific dates on them.
It's very common.
That is a very common one.
After my dad's brother passed, he lost a lot of people really close together. But he lost one brother, and it wasn't very long at all after that brother. But you got to think, he lost his mom, his dad, and a couple of brothers, all within 4 or 5 years. And he was getting in the shower. And my dad's very meticulous, and everything has a place. Everything has to be the same way. Everything, Dad. So that's just the way he's always been. And so he gets his towel and he puts it on the toilet seat, gets in the shower, takes his shower, gets out, gets his towel, his well-folded towel.
Right.
And that's just how he's always done it. After this happened, he got a hold of me because he had to tell me a story. I think he took me back in his room to tell me. And I remember the, I think it was a penny.
I think it was.
But it was on top of the towel. And there was no way that would have been there. I mean, he couldn't have just pulled the towel out of the towel closet and brought it in there and a penny stay on it.
Right. That wouldn't have worked.
So I thought that was very cool. We examined the date, and it didn't. In that particular instance, we couldn't really come up with anything on the date.
No, but that's not always how it works. Sometimes they're just pennies.
I think it was just a
sign.
Just a sign.
Yes. So you never know. You just got to keep your eyes open and keep an open mind.
Yeah. So dreams. You were talking about dreams.
Yeah.
we put a lot of stock in dreams. I don't particularly believe that any of them are random firings of, neurons
and stuff. Yeah.
I believe that they're all telling us something. Maybe, maybe at its simplest form and its most explainable form, we're not always honest with ourselves, and we hide. We even wear a mask to ourselves many times. Not to use another work thing, but I had a challenging conversation with someone just today, and they were blaming. They got really mad and were blaming their crew and everything on some stuff that happened. But I asked them before that they made a bad decision to look inward. And because of the fact, regardless of if somebody reported them for something, they reported them for something that they actually were doing wrong.
Right.
And, it was, and he, his answer was, well, why would you call my boss? I said, well, they couldn't call their boss, could they?
That's very true.
So who do you call? And if it was concerning, then that's the whole thing. And it was funny because he was placing blame on this person. He was certain it was not that person.
Right.
I didn't elaborate on who it was, but it's just funny, these things, how they work. But with the dreams, in particular on my end, I don't dream a lot. I'm sure I dream all the time, but
right.
I don't dream that much where I remember it and take it with me and everything. Sometimes I'll wake up and I've had like a crazy elaborate dream and stuff, but I don't write it down. I wish I did.
Right.
Maybe Google's developing software where we can just put the chip in and wake up and rewatch
it's all
it.
recorded there for you.
Yeah, rewatch our dreams or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe before long they'll give us little mini CDs we can put in and just put the dream we want.
There you go. Well, I don't think that would be a good idea, because I think dreaming, for the most part, when they're not very meaningful, when it's just normal dreaming, I think it's just your mind's way of working out everything that happened to you that day, storing important memories. And like you said, you don't always know. It's hard to look inward and you don't always know what you're doing. Sometimes you're lying to yourself. So when you're asleep, your subconscious mind starts working through all those problems, and it just manifests into dreams. And if you pay attention to what you dream, sometimes you can find the answers to problems.
Yeah.
And maybe you're not always going to like those answers, but
right.
And sometimes it can tell you when you're worried or when you're sick or when you're, there are a lot of dreams are metaphorical, but I think dreaming is just the mind's way of helping you.
It's kind of like the overnight update.
Right. The download.
Wouldn't that be weird? Because we're all AI.
Exactly.
If that really was when they communicate with us and all of a sudden we go online and all that is us either downloading or getting new information. So
we're sending out information.
Yeah, so it's bits and pieces of everything.
Oh, that's just too weird to think about.
Yeah.
That's too weird to think about. Let's move on.
Wow.
All right, so let's talk about another celebrity. This is corn singer Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
And he was explaining in this article about the band's new album called The Nothing. And he claims it's really about all the processes of grieving. And while he was talking about this new album, and delving into these dark subjects, he started talking about his fascinations, including an attraction to the paranormal. And he has, this weird macabre fantasy with serial killers, which has sort of been egged on a bit by our friend Zach Baggins, because, he's associated with him. I think that he's, sort of got the same sort of interests. But he described having ghosts in his own home.
Right.
And he talks about how he sees things out of the corner of his eye in his house, like the black shadows.
Yes.
We talk about that all the time. He says there's bangs on his walls all the time. Stuff flies off of his walls. And he says at this point, it doesn't even scare me. He's just used to it. They're just there and he's just used to it. He said, all I wish for them is peace. And he says, I wish they could cross over. And, he feels like he's been seeing that kind of stuff since he was a kid.
Yeah.
And it used to scare him when he was a kid, but now he's just, pretty used to it. He did talk about how he has parts of dead bodies that he keeps in his home. And he also keeps a trove of haunted dolls.
Wow.
Like when he's out on the road, he collects them, or people give them to him, or he buys them and he puts them in his home. And he's even made a spiritual barrier that he erected to protect himself from the haunted dolls. It's like made of certain stones and sage and stuff like that. Kind of fences him off from all the different ones. He says he gets them from antique shops, and he has a few owners in different places that when they get something like that, they'll call him, say, I think I have something you'll be interested in. And so he's just super fascination for that. He said that he has the remains of at least 7 people in his house. He's got a shrunken head, skulls. He's got swords that have been used to decapitate people.
Wow.
That sounds familiar. And, along with his huge haunted doll collection. So, it's just one of those things where he kind of brings it on himself.
Oh, yeah.
But he's okay with it. And if you're okay with it and you know what you're getting into, then, more power to you.
Absolutely. I'm sure it helps him with his writing, His style of writing's always been the very pained and suffering type of lyrics and stuff. So I'm sure it helps him to have some ghost.
Yes. Well, this new album, where he talks about the process of grieving. It's because he recently lost his mother, and it was around the same time that he also lost his wife. So I guess he was going through a really rough time, and of course that's going to spawn.
That's a rough time.
Yeah, that's going to spawn a lot of creative,
your juices
darker
flow.
Lyrics and things like that. So I really like Korn.
Yeah.
I love their music.
Yeah, absolutely, and they still rock, man. So good stuff.
All right, so let's move away from the
Drury Lane.
Yeah, Drury Lane, the haunted house stories, and let's talk about the Winchester Mystery House.
Oh.
This was a really interesting story that I found in the San Francisco, this little newspaper, just sort of a little interesting piece that they did about a riddle that has been solved at the Winchester Mystery House, as though there aren't a million of them there. And this is about, now anyone who's done the tour at the Winchester Mystery House, you'll notice that one of the highlights of the house are the windows, and they say that they are Tiffany made windows. They've got these stained glass windows and these beveled glass windows. But it turns out that people know that those are not actually Tiffany windows. They're not made. Some people that know what Tiffany windows look like know that these are not made. They're beveled differently. Now they're very high quality,
right? And
they're very well made, but they're just not made from Tiffany's. And
are they made from Debbie Gibson's?
They are not, believe it or not. So for decades, they've been trying to figure out who really custom made all these stained glass windows for Sarah Winchester. Now, it says in this article that one of the gems of British Columbia is this place called Cradock Castle. And the people that own that castle, the caretakers, they decided to get an architectural historian named Jim Wolfe to do some research on their windows. And when he got a look at the windows, he realized that they were very similar to the ones in the Winchester Mystery House. And so he had this hunch that those windows came from California. So he started doing some digging and, tons of research. It took him forever. He was looking for prominent glass artists in the San Francisco area, and he finally zeroed in on a man named John Mallon. Now, Mallon it says he was no ordinary craftsman. Now, he's largely forgotten today. At the time, he was considered one of America's greatest glass artists, in the late 1800s. He learned his craft in New York, and he went west in 1858, chasing after the gold rush in British Columbia. Now, unfortunately, he was too late when he got there, and he didn't want to return. He's too embarrassed to return, too proud to go back and say that he had been foolish in chasing it. So he decided to remain in the city and find work in the glass trade. And that turned out to be one of the best ideas he'd ever had, because he became the go-to craftsman for wealthy Californians for their windows and things. And so he started a company called the Pacific Glass Company. And so this historian argues that the stained glass in both the Cradock Castle and the Winchester Mystery House came from this same man. the windows are so distinctive, he said he was completely convinced, and this was the information that he presented to the historian presented to the castle and told the people at the Winchester Mystery House. He said, this is what I believe the windows came from.
Wow.
Now, coincidentally, that's not even where the story ends. There was restoration work being done in one of the dining rooms at the Winchester Mystery House. And as the workers carefully removed part of a wall, they saw something tucked inside. And it was an envelope that had been beautifully preserved and untouched since the day over 100 years ago that it slipped through the floorboards above. And it was stamped across the front was the elaborate seal of the Pacific American Decorative Company.
Wow.
The glass company, complete with the memorial church windows that they created, like their whole logo and everything. So immediately they called the historian and told them what they found. He said, yes, that is him. That is the man that made those windows. And so the timing of it was really unusual because it was, by the time he figured that out and told them, I mean, it was only days that they found that envelope.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was not long. The timing just lined up perfectly, almost like it was meant to be found out. So they claim that they don't think they've ever found anything hidden like that in the house before. That was Sarah's, has her handwriting on it. And everything. And it has helped solve this mystery. Now, the only thing that they have to do now is get the tour guides to stop calling them Tiffany windows.
Right.
Because it's one of those things that was guessed that turned into a fact, and that was just something that they used on the tours and everybody's used to. So now they have to change the whole, spiel that the tour guides
but what a
do.
great story, because
Isn't that awesome?
that was obviously done by a ghost.
Yeah, like
He came in the house or something and was talking about that. Maybe Sarah heard it. Somebody heard it and knew that was there.
Yep, and all the
No, it
synchronicities.
gives me chills.
It gives me chills too. And we were just talking about how spirits communicate from the other side.
Right.
You've got the synchronicities. You've got, he had that thought in his head about the windows looking the same as the ones in this other place. That other place just happened to call him and want him to do the research
Right.
on their windows. I mean, it just, everything just lined up so perfect. Now, it turns out that the Winchester Mystery House, this happened a few months ago. They've had this for a couple months, and they just are looking forward to sharing the news and setting up an exhibit, and making it a public announcement. But I thought it was such a cool story.
That's awesome.
And it's an iconic location, and everybody thinks they know everything about it. And then here we have this new information.
I wonder what else is under the floorboards and stuff.
I don't know, but you can't just go through there and start tearing the house apart looking for things like that.
No.
That's awful.
Oh, it's really cool though. I mean, I'm sure they know where everything is, the spirits.
Oh, I'm sure.
That was totally done on purpose.
Yeah, I think so. All right, well, I have a few more stories here, some just interesting little tidbits. And this is such a cool story. It's about a location in Japan, in Kyoto. And it's this new mysterious guest house that has opened. And I want to go here so bad. It just seems so cool. And the way the article's worded is it says that Japan may not celebrate Halloween, but they have a penchant for outfitting hotel rooms with like spooky props to give visitors a good scare. So there's this new guest house that's opened, and it's called the Mysterious Lodging. That's the name of it. And it has 11 themed rooms, each costing US dollars about $70 a night, very reasonable. And each one is large enough to fit up to 2 people. But the rooms, it's not just scary rooms. I'm going to tell you what these rooms are. They're so awesome.
Okay.
So we'll start with the scary one. It's called the Room of Horrors. I love that they all have these names.
Yeah.
The Room of Horrors. So on the wall of the horror room is the dial that adjusts the level of uncanny occurrences produced, starting from off, where nothing happens, all the way up to 3, where it's very scary. And after 7 p.m., the maximum level scariness begins. And now there's a video on there that you can watch, a little clip of it. The lights will flicker. It'll be quiet. And all of a sudden, the whole room will turn red and you'll hear a scream. There's like a hand that pokes out off at the top, at the ceiling. There's knocks and bangs on the walls. I mean, all kinds of things you can think of that would be scary will happen. And you can dial to the level that you're comfortable with, I suppose. I just have to turn it all the way up. But I just think that's awesome that they, you go in knowing that that's going to happen.
Well, that's really cool.
Another room is called the Room of Plenty, And it's just this room where there are buttons all over the walls, top to bottom, just tons of buttons. Every button produces a different sound, and you can walk around and like make the different auditory noises. And there's a video on there of this guy, and I don't know how long he was in there, but by the end of the video, he was running back and forth and playing like music and stuff. I mean, it was crazy, and it can be soothing and it can be fun, I suppose. Another room is called the Room of Gifting, and this is a room where visitors are asked to record up to 4 heartfelt voice messages into a mic, and they can be anything you want, and then at the press of the button, the messages are played throughout the room with like soothing music.
Right.
Which I think is kind of cool. There's one called the Room of Scenery, which projects more than 20 surreal videos onto its windows. And using an iPad, you can simulate different things like heavy rain. You can even simulate something sinister looking, like it looks like there's shadows outside, like touching, kind of trying to get in. So it just looks like a big window on the wall, and you decide what you want to see, which is kind of cool. There's a room of board games.
Right.
And there's just shelves on the walls with all these different board games. And you can even take a board game downstairs into the cafe and play with other people. But just as many games as you could possibly think to play. There's a room of regeneration, which has a climbing wall. And there's dumbbells and push-up bars and things like that in it. There's the Room of Wellness, just has cute, fuzzy little Japanese figures and fluffy clouds on the ceiling. And it's pink and nice. There is the Spinning Room, which lets you, I don't get this, it says it lets you converse with a digital display using retro telephones, like rotary style phones. I don't know what's on this digital display that you're like conversing with on the phones, but that's what that one is. And there's here's a couple of interesting ones. There's one called the Room of Possession, and it lets you commune with the spirit of the fabled samurai Sakamoto Ryoma. And it says visitors must bow to the little shrine and summon Ryoma by calling out his name. And then various questions can then be directed to him, to which the spirit answers with knocks on the wall, 2 knocks for yes and 3 knocks for no.
Oh, wow.
And that's what that room is for. There's the Room of Fairy Tales, which is a similar experience, but with a folklore hero named Momotaro. And the last room, number 11, is called the Room of Games, which is sort of like the board game, but these are more Japanese tabletop games.
Right.
And they're all lined against the wall. Now, located on the first floor of this mysterious lodging and accessible to everyone staying there is the cafe. It's curiously named the Cafe That Occasionally Moves. And it has refreshments and local delicacies, and you can order music from a list. And depending on what you order, it causes various elements in the room to automatically move on their own. Even like the little bathroom things, the men and women bathroom things, they dance sometimes when the music comes on. So it sounds like a really awesome place to visit. They just come up with the cutest stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And very reasonable. So I thought that was really cool. Like, I love the Room of Horrors and the Room of Possession. That just sounds really crazy.
It sounds
really
awesome.
Works.
We need to make a hotel over here kind of like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be very popular.
The Room of Geishas.
Maybe.
The Room of Harem. I got all kinds of ideas.
I think that's already a thing here, and that's not what it's not like a lodging place.
I'll tell you what I want.
They call it something else.
I want the Room of Massages.
All right. So this next story is about a New Zealand man who was arrested in his, quote, witchcraft deaths of 5 Fiji family members.
Oh, no.
So a New Zealand man who's been described as a witch doctor or a healer has been charged in the mysterious deaths of 5 family members in Fiji last month. And they haven't released the identity of the man, but he has been charged with 5 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. And all the people that died were all family members. They passed away on August 26th on the side of a cliff. And it says they were identified as, and I'm not going to give their names, there's the father, 63-year-old father, he's a carpenter, his wife, their daughter, who was 34, her 2 daughters, who were 11 and 8, and then there was a baby who was 1 year old who was the sole survivor. And it says a toxicology report determined that the victims died from ingesting a toxic substance.
Oh, no.
And supposedly the father of the children that were killed, he wasn't with the mom. He blamed his in-laws because he said they had an extreme interest in witchcraft.
Wow.
And so he said he never saw anyone or any family so much into witchcraft than his in-laws. And I don't mean that they did witchcraft. I mean that they went to witch doctors and healers. And I mean, he did say that they practiced witchcraft, but anytime that like the man's wife would complain of stomach pains or something, they immediately just they wouldn't go to a regular doctor.
Right.
They would just go to this healer. So this New Zealand man who says he was an alleged healer, I don't know what he gave him. They're not giving a lot of details. I don't know why whatever he gave him would have been given to everybody in the family, but he is being charged with all of it. It's his fault. Obviously, he's done something. And just the fact that they were on the side of a mountain on a cliff, I mean, it sounds like some kind of ritual thing.
It sounds like
Yeah, like something he told them to do, and they believed it and did it. And thankfully, the baby, is okay. But how sad for the rest of that family.
What doesn't make sense is why he would do that, knowing that they would know he did it.
Right.
I mean,
like, do you think he was just ignorant of what he was doing?
Or set up.
Maybe.
One or the other.
Could be.
I mean, maybe somebody didn't like the fact that the family put all their faith in this guy instead of him.
True. So, I mean, a lot of unanswered questions there,
Yeah.
but just really sad story. So this next story is about a Russian volcano eruption that caused rare purple sunsets all over the world. Isn't that crazy?
That's awesome.
And now this volcano, it erupted back in June.
Right.
And it's called the volcano Reikoke, I think is how you say it.
It's called Volcano of Prince.
And a research associate at the University of Colorado says that the aerosols that it shot into the air are responsible for turning the sky a purple hue in different parts of the globe. And I think people
The sky was all purple. There were people running everywhere.
So even though it was a very isolated volcanic eruption, not even an eruption, just that it shot the aerosols into the air, it had this huge impact on a global impact with all these. I couldn't imagine seeing a purple.
I tell you what, too bad we can't do that on command.
Yeah, really.
It's like, I'll take a purple sunset, please.
It said that the eruption was so powerful that it was captured by astronauts on the International Space Station in June. And this particular volcano sits on an uninhabited island in the Kuril Islands chain in the Northwest Pacific Ocean. And it most recently exploded in 1924 and then back in 1778. So it wasn't any danger to anybody, but just the fact that it released these aerosols that were 20 times thicker than normal, it made all this crazy purple.
I wonder what the people in 1778
sunsets
thought if it did that.
I know, and the sunsets were all purple and they were running around screaming.
They'd be running everywhere, wouldn't they? Trying to run from their destruction. He didn't even care.
Oh, wow. There would be like mobs with pitchforks and torches, and somebody'd be burned for witchcraft. I mean, it'd be horrible.
I'd be upset if the mob did not have pitchforks and torches.
It wouldn't be a very scary mob, would it?
It
Just
would
be
not.
kind of like a group of people.
Yeah, it's not even really a good mob at all. I wish mobs still did that instead of like mace and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I wish it was just like common, like you go to the mob store.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, here you go, pitchforks, torches.
One side's all pitchforks.
One side's all torches. Brooms in the middle. The brooms are for special shenanigan nights.
Oh, of course.
Shenanigans. Yeah.
All right. So here's a story from Santa Fe, Texas about a monkey. Or maybe a chimp.
Oh, no.
Or maybe nothing.
What?
We're not sure. So no one can confirm that a monkey is actually running loose in the town of Santa Fe, Texas. But a lot of people are talking about it, about having seen it.
Oh, my God.
So on Monday, a resident called the police to report some kind of primate wreaking havoc near the corner of 24th and East Bel Air Streets. So the police searched for an hour and a half but couldn't find one or any evidence of one being in the area. And then the next day, the police received a similar report from the same area. So another 90 minutes of searching and still no sign of a monkey. Now, some residents reported sightings on social media claiming the animal had been aggressive towards humans and pets, and at least one said it tried to kidnap a cat.
Oh, wow.
But none of the reports could be confirmed. It says there's no answers that the police and animal services are investigating, but they've expressed a touch of skepticism because nobody has seen it. Well, these people that say they've seen it have seen it, but none of the authorities have seen it. And it says, I think the statement is that the Santa Fe Police Department has been unable to substantiate that there is a primate on the loose or that anyone has been attacked. And Bayou Animal Services, which handles animal control for the area, could offer no more clarity because they have not set eyes on the monkey. He says, we do not have reports that say it's harassing animals, and they haven't been able to get into contact with any of the people that are on social media that are claiming to have seen it. So there's no confirmed pictures, no videos, but people swear that they have seen this monkey running around.
Yeah, I know about this. The cops showed up, and they talked to the one witness, and he was wearing a giant brown overcoat and the floppy hat and some glasses. I believe the witness name was Bubbles, something like that. He was just like, ooh, ah, no, ooh, ah.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's amazing that there's a ninja monkey in Texas.
I'm serious.
I'm going to write a song, The Great Ninja Monkey of Texas.
This one woman quoted on Facebook that said that she had a monkey try to attack her while checking her mail, and she spent the last 20 minutes in her car because, she was terrified.
I'm telling you, they would know, okay?
Right.
Because there would be a report of a big bald man wrestling a monkey in the middle of the street and smiling from ear to ear.
Well, the animal organization, they contacted the people in the area that own primates because you have to have it registered. If you own a monkey, you have to register it.
Was there a lot of those?
And I don't know. It said they confirmed that all of the known animals were accounted for. So nobody is missing a monkey that's registered.
Wow.
A registered.
How
It's
lucky.
an unregistered monkey.
How lucky are those people that have monkeys?
Well, here's what I just want to say. All of these people that claim they've seen this monkey and no one believes them because they can't see it, now you know what people that see Bigfoot feel like.
Dude, what if it's a ghost monkey?
A ghost monkey. It's an alien monkey.
No, seriously.
I mean, it could be.
Don't laugh about ghost monkeys.
I'm sorry.
I mean, they're only like, what, 1% off of us? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're just like 99% of a ghost or something. I don't know. It's
crazy.
Ghost monkey be awesome.
They've even used a drone to try and locate it, but apparently the thing can just hide.
It probably throws
really
poo at
well.
it. It's like, we had the drone up there, sir. What happened? Everything went brown. We're not sure. The officers went on
Big smudge.
The officers went on the roof to look for it. They all slipped off.
Gross.
What happened? Did they slip on the poo? No, banana peels. We're not really sure, sir.
But we don't think there's a monkey.
There's definitely not a monkey. It just seems like a bunch of monkey business, and they're monkeying around. It's really cool.
It is.
It could turn out really bad though, like if you report a primate
and they find it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, they'll think you're nuts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, ma'am, how large was the monkey? I mean, come on, right?
Right.
Would you really report it? Like right now, if we went,
I mean, it have to be decent size if people were scared of it.
If we went, no. You give me a little freaking spider monkey out there, I'll climb a tree.
Well, why would it try to steal a cat?
Why wouldn't it? The cat probably pissed it off. I'm sure the cat looked at it like, meow, meow, meow. I mean, it's so weird to me that you did the purple story and then you did the monkey story causing havoc and nobody seeing it. You would have to live at our home to understand that joke, but
I didn't make the joke.
But it sounds like a purple monkey story.
It does.
Yes, purple monkey will have to. The story of purple monkey will be told one day.
Yes, it will. All right, so one last story. This is from Maine. Mm-hmm. So
Did you want me to go, oh, yeah?
This is about a Maine woman who says
that
she buried her friend in the backyard to fulfill her dying wish.
Oh.
So police in Maine...
I hit her in the head with a shovel. That was her other wish.
The remains of an elderly woman were discovered in a shallow grave on a property where the owner claims that she buried her friend as part of her dying wish. So the woman is 83 years old. Her name is Vernell Jackson. And she wasn't worried at all when the state officials showed up at her home in Norway. And they were going to perform a welfare check on a woman who had reportedly been staying with her. But according to the news release, the Maine State Police recovered the remains of her body, of the woman who was also in her 80s, buried in Jackson's backyard. And when they asked her about it, she said that she buried her there. They've been friends for like 20 years. She said she begged me when she passed away that she didn't have enough insurance to bury her, and I don't have enough money to bury her. And she said, will you promise to bury me in your yard so I'll be close? And, she said that she considered her to be the daughter she never had, even though I guess they were sort of the same age. And she said that you're the daughter I never had and I want to be close to you. And finally, she just agreed to do it for her because that's what she wanted. And so she said that after her friend passed, who, she did exactly what her friend asked. She said she put her in a tarp and she dragged her out there and she buried her. It was a pretty shallow grave. The woman's 83. And she didn't realize that she needed a permit to do that sort of thing, that if she had known that she needed a permit, she would have gotten one. But she didn't realize that she needed one. She was not dishonest about it. She was like, yeah, I buried her out there. And, it talks about how the two women first met years ago while they were attending church in the South, and that her friend offered her a place to live when she first moved to Maine. And she wanted to repay the favor so that when her friend asked her to move in with her again because she fell ill about 4 years ago, she moved in with her again to help take care of her. Now, officials say that she likely died 12 to 18 months ago, but still have to conduct an autopsy to determine the time and cause of death. So here's my question. It says that they were out there, they discovered her because they're out there doing a welfare check on her. So I don't know who initiated this welfare check because apparently this woman's been dead for 18 months, 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
So obviously nobody's been concerned about her welfare for the last year to year and a half.
Right.
So I'm curious what spawned the sudden welfare check.
Well, you know how these agencies are.
I guess. I don't know. But I just thought this was a really funny story because the woman was just like, that's what I thought. I was like, she just was like, well, she asked me to. So I did.
Yeah, no,
just put it right in my yard.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, good Lord. I can just see that happen and be like, oh yeah, don't die. Put me out there. Put a little Tom Brady bobblehead with me.
I want to be in good enough health when I'm 83 to drag my friend out in the yard in a tarp and bury her.
That's a hell of a goal.
I mean, that is quite the effort you have to put forth for that.
Yeah, I would like you to do that for me. So I don't have to get the embalming fluid stuff.
Right. You don't want to be cremated.
No.
I thought we were just going to freeze you. Wasn't that the...
Well, if they'll let me, yes.
Right. I was going to buy a big freezer, put your name on the side.
No, that's not the kind of way I want to froze.
Oh, you don't like the big, chest freezer in the garage?
A little Cairo, whatever. Yeah, I want to be taken to Cairo, please, and frozen there.
Cryoprint.
Yes.
I have to take you all the way to Egypt. You're going to smell terrible by the time we get there. I don't know.
So I'll fit right in. That's just crazy though. It's wow.
Okay, so that's all my news.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, that took us a week to get through, and it's not normally like that, but sometimes you have a lot of dude.
So many weird things are happening during this episode.
Oh my God. I mean, just if you guys only knew, if you were only here, maybe we'll have a new patron level. Sit in on the podcast. We had so much stuff happen. I mean, just so much crap.
It makes me wonder what we've said during this episode that somebody doesn't want us to publish.
I'm telling you. So we got a lot of big things coming up. We got some great investigations coming up. We're also got a surprise coming up for everybody here in the next couple of episodes. I can't guarantee which episode it is, but I have secured a really cool Halloween interview.
Oh,
and
cool.
Since I always love my October episodes, and because it's the best month and it's Stacy's birthday month,
it is.
We're going to have, I've conjured up something really cool for an interview to talk about something very creepy and very popular and very famous. So we'll see how that goes, and it's already confirmed, so that'll be happening. You'll also be hearing our show advertised very soon on another very popular podcast, and radio show. I'll give you all the information on that when I get it. And
when the time comes.
When the time does come. Other than that, we have some, like I said, we have some really cool investigations lined up that we're going to be doing here shortly. And I'm very stoked about all that. We got a lot of big trips coming up, so we're going to be vlogging away on those trips. So I'm just so excited about just a very action-packed end of the year coming up, and so many things. So please, once again, go visit paranormalsideshow.com. Look at the wonderful work that Mistress Raja has done. And also you can go there and find information on the shows, information on the articles, all that good stuff. You can link to the YouTube, which is going to be really popping now. We got a lot of new subscribers on YouTube, and that's funny because we don't do anything with it except upload the show in quite a while. But Stacy has started to pull out these cool little clips, and she's going to be uploading those, and they're going to be awesome. So a great way to introduce people to the show and, you know, get people hooked on it. So we really appreciate the fact that you guys do that, because you do it quite often, and we really appreciate it. Of course, it's patreon.com/paranormal sideshow, facebook.com/paranormal sideshow. And listen, this is really important. Again, everybody that came to us at Scarefest, everyone who hung out with us at Scarefest, we love you so much. We really appreciate it. We can't wait till the next con. And for my lovely wife, Stacy, my name's John. So long from the sideshow.
Good night.